direction of the water flowing into the bay. Again, it was 7:10. This is the best prediction for the arrival of the wave. Much like weather models, it's very hard to simulate the entirety of the ocean. So that was the best prediction given by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. And again, we're going to keep watching this. If it is delayed out here for Kauai, that also means that it will be delayed as we're going further down the island chain. Again, it does seem like we are seeing some waves moving in. Again, this is a very active scene where we're trying to watch exactly what's happening.
That's right, and you know, I mean, taking us back now to 2011, Ben, I don't know if you remember, but the 9.1 magnitude quake in Japan, it was a very powerful earthquake, and that sent us a tsunami wave as well. And you could definitely, when you do see it on camera, you can definitely tell that that is a tsunami wave. You talk about the receding of the water, and I remember vividly watching Hilo Bay, and you will definitely see that big difference there. As far as right now, though, again, we are just monitoring and looking at the shoreline for any changes there. And again, once again, off in the distance, that sunbeam that you were pointing to, you're also noticing some subtle differences and changes in the water there. No major recession of the water yet, which is a telltale sign that the tsunami wave has arrived.
Sunset is expected at 7:12, so we've still got some daylight. We're just past that. Thank goodness that we still have that light out there to really give us a clearer sense of what is happening. We're going to be staying on this cam at Haleiwa right now. This is a live stream overlooking Haleiwa Bay with the expected arrival of the first activity of the tsunami generated by the 8.8 quake. We're looking at this. Our first alert weather team is monitoring this shot very closely. Literally an unfolding situation as we're watching the water and kind of paying close attention to what we're seeing here with the conditions.
And again, the water here has to wrap around since Haleiwa Bay is on the northern portions of the island. It's coming from the west and northwest. Russia is off to the northwest of the island chain. We've been showing that map of just completely open water. So we have to see a little bit of a wraparound. First, it hits the Nepali coast and then starts to move into Haleiwa Bay, move down the western and leeward coast of Kauai. So we are going to continue to see how this evolves.
And Drew and Ben, talk about the impact of, I know this this earthquake, 8.8 earthquake off the eastern coast of Russia had the depth of 46 miles down. Now, talk about how that plays a role in the strength and power of wave.
Well, usually the deeper an earthquake is centered, the less likely it will cause an earthquake. It will cause a tsunami, rather. However, it kind of depends on the type of earthquake. Drew had explained earlier, if it's a slip, not too bad. If it is a thrust earthquake that goes straight up and that pushes a whole column of water up, that's one of the things that we were seeing in the Thailand earthquake, the devastating, I believe it was 2006 earthquake. Might have been, I might have to check on the date there, but the one that devastated so many places like Indonesia and on Christmas Eve of that year. Right now, Hanalei not really showing anything, but then again, 7:10 was an estimated arrival. There was a wave that was recorded, according to Haleiwa officials, at the Buoy at Midway Atoll. So depending on how things are going, we could be seeing a delayed arrival, but then again, remember, it is not just the first one. 7:17, which is when we were expecting the first waves to arrive on Oahu. If we can now switch over to, this is a live look at Honolulu Harbor, where earlier we were also monitoring quite a few reports that boaters, a number of them, and fishing boats were heeding the warning, and we also saw them head out to sea, staying away from the channels, going in water at a depth of 300 feet or greater. And you can see it looks like the harbor is all clear. Even got word that the Coast Guard cutter ship also left the harbor right now as we look
at Honolulu Harbor, 7:17. Again, the estimated arrival of the first waves here at Oahu.
Yeah, and the ability for these vessels to evacuate is one of the silver linings of an event like this, because you had a 6-hour notice, for the boaters to head out to the open ocean, for, residents and visitors to head to different evacuation sites right now. So we're keeping a very close eye. Live look at Honolulu Harbor. It's 7:18 right now. 8 minutes after the first wave was expected, and the epicenter, so to speak, when something like this, the first area of focus is Hanalei Bay on Kauai. We still have some daylight out right now to keep a close eye on this. Now, Drew and Ben and Jen as well, as we're looking at these images here, what should our viewers be paying attention to in regards to the water movement and activity?
Sorry, before you guys answer, can we switch over now to this live look at Waikiki, where we might be able to detect more changes in the water here, and you can definitely see a clear view of the coastline, and definitely empty there. Earlier shots, right, Mark, when you guys began the coverage right after the tsunami warning, the beaches were crowded. You can see that is not the case right now. They heeded the warning. Mayor Rick Blangiardi said, if you're anywhere near the coastline, get out.
And I think it's important to note just generally the ocean conditions right now. We do have a small craft advisory. We have strong trade winds. We also have a rising swell on south-facing shores and east-facing shores. We're seeing wave heights expected today at 3 to 5, and tsunami itself. East-facing shores at 2 to 4. So you could kind of see in some of these shots, there does seem to be some disruption, some rip currents that are happening, strong currents that are happening. So very interesting as we look at these live shots, since it's not, it's traveled so many miles to get here, so far with the epicenter just off the coast of Russia, and giving us that 6-hour window to get here, we are likely going to be seeing on a smaller scale of a tsunami, but still a lot of energy. But it's really hard to predict how the wave direction is going to be impacting some of the spots. But like we're talking about, the shape of Hilo Bay itself historically has caused damage in the past, especially for boats and even along the coastal harbors there. So this is something we're going to have to wait and watch throughout the next couple of hours. The initial wave could be small, but then build up throughout the next couple of hours.
One thing that I'm noticing when we have had tsunamis in the past, when we have shown this live shot of Coconut Island, usually that little channel between the island and the main part of Hawaii Island, you can see a current that is going in and out. We haven't seen that yet in Hilo, obviously. Right now, here's another live look at Hanalei Bay. And whatever was happening off in the distance might have been a camera artifact. Haven't seen it off in the distance anymore, off at the point. But we are still seeing some currents that, that still indicates some sort of activity. The shoreline right now, the water has not receded, but there is, again, as Jen mentioned, the possibility that maybe the first wave, not so big, but again, it's a series of waves. We had in 2011, huge waves start coming in and impacting the Kailua Kona area, causing major damage to the shops on Ali'i Drive, and that was like 4 or 5 hours after the initial waves had hit Oahu, and so we're not in the clear yet. It's not a single wave.
That's true. It's not always the first wave that might be the most dangerous, and it is a series of waves. That's a great reminder, Ben. And now we want to turn things over to our reporter, Mahealani Richardson.
Yeah, we had mentioned the vessels leaving harbor areas, heading out into the open ocean. We have great video of some of the vessels leaving the ports. Let's send it over to Mahale with some of the images you've captured. Hi, Mahale.
Thanks a lot, Mark and Steph. And of course, if you need to interrupt me at any moment, because we're all keeping an eye on our ports, but I wanted to show you this video that our Casey Lund was shooting from Kaka'ako High Rise, and it was amazing to see all of the ships evacuating. Now, this is because at about 6:47 this evening, the U.S. Coast Guard ordered the evacuation of all commercial vessels from all commercial harbors in the entire state. So you can see the The Coast Guard there was also moving. Several boaters were getting out of the way. I called a boating friend, and he had already gotten the word. In fact, many boaters were not waiting for the U.S. Coast Guard to give this official warning, but everyone just certainly getting out of the way. There are 9 commercial harbors on 6 islands. We also saw there was a cruise ship in the Hilo Bay area that loaded their passengers, and they were heading out to sea. Now, I also called Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam to ask about the military ships. They would not say what the military ships are doing, and so we're trying to get official word on what those battleships are doing. But again, the U.S. Coast Guard has ordered the evacuation of all commercial vessels from every harbor in the state of Hawaii. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mahealani, for that. And so we were monitoring those live cameras, and we still, during Mahea's report, we have not noticed anything that sticks out just yet. But just before we went to Mahea, Ben Gutierrez just mentioned what is really important, and that is the reason why, even though this timeline.
Rest in peace to the guy who thought scheduling follow-ups at 11 p.m. was entrepreneurship. He didn't.
The seafloor and grows quickly towards the coast. We get to the deep ocean pretty quickly here in the island chain. We don't have a continental shelf around us like the rest of the continents do. And of course, on that graphic that we were looking at, you can very clearly see the jump in the buoy, jump up, jump down, jump up. And again, that's multiple waves. It's not just one wave.
Is that an indicator on how strong the energy is from?
It absolutely can be, especially if we were seeing a much stronger, like much higher and much lower troughs and crests from the waves. Again, the buoy is on the top of the water. As the wave is troughing, so it's going down to the bottom, the buoy goes down. And so you're seeing it jump. This is the height in feet. If you bring up, let's bring up max 2 again, graphics 12, so you can see what we have out there. Again, this is on the y-axis. This is the height in feet. You're seeing this jump between 2 to just below -1 feet below the average, very quickly. This is a very quick jump.
Drew, something I want to jump back to is when we heard earlier from Governor Green, he was talking about the activity with the buoy at Midway.
Yes.
And so can you clear up for us and give us kind of like a direct line explanation? So he said is measured at 6 foot at the buoy. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What's happening at the ocean surface?
So to the best of my understanding, and Ben, if I say this incorrectly, please correct me, 6 feet is what he's talking about between the trough and the crest of the wave. So it's 6 feet from the top of how tall it is, how tall the buoy goes up, to how low the buoy goes down in the water. So when we're seeing that, he talked about that 3 foot number, that is 3 feet above the typical water level or the tide level at that time. You can even see the tides in the beginning of this chart here. You've got high tide around 8. And then as you're going into even further, you've got low tide. You can see the up and down, and then you see this jump indicative of the tsunami waves.
We want to show you the waves that were just the first waves to arrive on the coast of Japan here. And gentlemen, if you could describe what we are seeing here. This was shortly after the powerful earthquake off the eastern coast of Russia.
Yeah, it looks like I'm going to assume that the ocean is on the right, or it might be a jetty. Oh, there we go. That's a better view. All right, this is basically classic tsunami wave action because it's coming in from the open ocean, and then you can see that very, very disturbed, kind of a wall of water that's coming in and overtaking, for example, the seawall there. You see the smaller waves? Those are probably the normal waves that are, just basically every day. But you can see how that big area of white, that white water that pushes in, definitely that's a tsunami. It's a slightly large one. It's not huge by any means, but it is a tsunami wave because you can see just how much energy that it has basically generated and basically pushing in. And so the waves, the little ones you see on the beach just above, basically in the center there, those are regular waves, but tsunami waves, those are definitely been coming in for Japan. Again, it's a little closer to to where the epicenter of this earthquake was. But right now, as we take another look at the Haleiwa camera, we're not seeing an awful lot. We're still seeing a little bit of the current action, and it seems a little bit flat close to the area. All right, Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is about to hold a press conference with the latest information. Let's go live there with the latest.
Coming in at Haleiwa Bay, not so big, maybe about 1.5 feet above normal sea level, and then the signal was dropping to below normal sea level when I left a minute ago. But that's just the first part of the wave, and we know from what we observed at Midway, it was actually the third wave at Midway was the largest. So we've got some time to wait here at Haleiwa, which was the first place it arrived, and of course it is moving down the island chain. So we hadn't seen anything on any other gauges as of yet, but we know it's coming. So we're always hopeful it won't be too bad, but anticipating from our models that yes, we are going to have a significant tsunami going across our islands and arriving on all the coasts. We monitor about 15 sea level gauges across the state, so we will have more reports later, and of course our news channels will also probably be telling us what they're seeing in places where they can safely observe the coast. So please stay out away from the coast. I know you've all evacuated, so continue to stay evacuated. And the instructions ultimately on when it's safe to go back will come from the state and county emergency management agencies. And but we've got a ways to go. It's probably going to be several hours before we may even be able to lower the warning here in Hawaii to advisory level when waves go down, and probably not at least until tomorrow morning before we're able to completely cancel the warning. And right now most of us are still waiting, and we are waiting to see just how big it is going to get across the state. So stay safe, everyone.
Given that the third wave was the biggest for Midway, are you expecting the same here in the islands of Hawaii? And what's the interval between waves?
So the interval between waves can be 10 to 20 minutes typically, from one wave crest to the next wave crest. And we don't know exactly, that Midway it was the third wave doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the third wave. Here, the wave pattern gets very complicated as the wave crosses the state, because those tsunami waves reflect off of islands, and they wrap around islands, and they interact with each other. So at every location, it can be a different wave. But the threat will definitely go on for probably several hours.
Dr. McCurry, if you could kind of encapsulate everything again with regards to what are you looking for right now? I know you said we're still not clear, but what are the specific elements that you are really tracking to see what's that next data point that you can release?
So we're pretty much done with forecasting the tsunami at this point. We are just reacting. So, of course, our center has responsibilities across the whole Pacific. So we're continuing to send messages to other countries around the Pacific. But our main responsibility is here in Hawaii, and so at this point we're more or less just monitoring the situation to try to determine when we could lower the alert level and ultimately when we can cancel.
The last time that you folks, I guess, were activated in this capacity, was that back in 2011 during the Japan earthquake? And how are the situations different? Because it's about the same direction of where it's coming from.
Yeah, 2011 was certainly the last significant tsunami we experienced here in Hawaii. But we actually handle many tsunami events in the Pacific every year, because earthquakes in the lower magnitude 7 range are pretty frequent, maybe about 10 a year in the Pacific, and almost all of them generate some kind of smallish tsunami, but we don't normally hear about it. But sure, yeah, the Japan tsunami was the last significant tsunami, and in some ways it's similar, but every tsunami is unique in certain ways. The way the source behaves affects the tsunami, and crossing the bathymetry in the Pacific the waves get focused and defocused in different ways. And so that's why we need numerical models to help us predict what might happen on our coast.
I know you were expecting 3 to 10. Now here we are, and we're more in the reaction phase, but can you revisit that prediction of up to 10 foot?
Yeah, sure. So the main thing we use to constrain our models are these deep ocean gauges that we support in the Northwest Pacific. Well, we support them all across the Pacific, but the ones for this event are the ones in the Northwest Pacific, and they're out in deep water. They measure the tsunami without interference from reflections on the coast, which you have with a normal tide gauge that's in a harbor. And so our models try to match the signals that are seen on those deep ocean gauges, and if we can match them, then we know we've created the right kind of wave. And so, of course, in the beginning, we only have a reading on one gauge, and later on it's 2, 3, 4 gauges, and so we keep iterating with these models. But even from the get-go, from the very beginning, the forecast was pretty consistent, even with more of this data telling us that, yeah, Hawaii had this threat. And for the coastline in Hawaii, there's another part of this model that actually brings the synthetic wave up onto the coast in a few, maybe about a dozen places around our state. And so some of those models did say that we would have roughly 10 feet above normal sea level. So that's what we've been going on, and it's been pretty consistent.
And when will you update us again?
I guess I can take your advice on when you'd like an update. I think I should probably come down maybe in another half an hour or so, because we should have more readings from across the state. Okay. And then I can give you another update.
What sort of conversations will you be having the next few hours?
Well, mostly we will just trying to see if the readings we're getting are consistent with our model, and thinking about the other places around the Pacific that we're advising at this time.
What places are the dozens of places that could see up to 10 feet?
Well, certainly Hawaii has certain areas that in the past typically get pretty big amplitudes, and that's Hanalei Bay, it's Haleiwa on Oahu, it's Kahului on Maui, and it's Hilo on the Big Island. And so those are for our models now, those are also the biggest places. Okay, stay safe, everyone.
And that was Dr. Chip McCreary from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center saying, again, they are done predicting this event. It is actually happening right now. And during that press conference, Mark, and Drew and Ben, we were actually monitoring this live shot of Hanalei Bay and actually seeing signs that the waters were receding, and at times even parts of the reef were exposed.
Yeah, I've been looking very closely at the shoreline, which is just above the red banner. At one point, it was a little bit further out, and so that may have been a little bit of the water receding. Not a ton, but there is a sign that something was happening, and that there were some people in the Honolulu area who were saying that the water had receded enough where the reef was exposed. We were seeing some things on the camera. We weren't particularly sure what it was, but now looking at it, it might have been the reef getting exposed there, and then the water is now coming back in. But we do have, you know, just an indication that some kind of tsunami wave may have occurred or may have arrived in Hanalei. It's not just, it's not that big, you know, it's just not huge. But then again, remember, even if you don't have the size and height on the surface, this energy goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, wherever it may be, and is still capable of causing currents. And we're seeing a bit of that right now, because it's a little bit flatter close to the shore, and then you can see those tendrils of currents that are heading out those areas of flatter water that kind of snake out into the further distance there. So It might not be huge. It might not be, something that looks extremely destructive. But just from looking at the ocean and the way the ocean looks, there is something happening out there right now. But as Chip McCreary from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said, this could still be several hours. As we've been saying this evening, it's just the first wave. It's not going to be the whole, it's not going to be one and done. It's going to be an event where we're going to have waves coming in maybe every 20, 30 minutes. Possibly for the next several hours.
And it does appear that, from when we first started taking this cam at 7:10, about a half an hour ago, that you can see more movement in this camera. And when you are speaking of an event like this, when you're seeing any types of movement in the current, that can speak to the strength and power. Drew Davis, you're looking very closely at the cams as well. What are you noticing on your end?
Like you mentioned, Mark, we are seeing some strong currents. It's a mixture of water going out. Ben mentioned that we were able to see some of the reef exposed, potentially even pretty far out, closer to that point that you see far off in the distance. And just taking a wide view, if you kind of look at you can see the currents in the water right now, actually. If you look at the water and look at the sunlight, you can actually see the water pushing in towards the coastline right now. So the reflective water, you can kind of see that current pushing in ever so slightly. Again, we are watching for multiple waves here, and off in the distance, the sun is setting, and it even seems like we have one person out there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It looks like one person paddling in the water right now on a stand-up paddleboard.
And the state officials said that they have rescue teams activated and ready to go, but in an event like this, they are not going to be putting their lives in danger and responding to save you. So
basically, you're on your own at this point.
Yeah.
So if you have not heeded the evacuations, if you are going into the water, despite the fact that you've been told not to do so, you're going to be putting first responders at risk if they choose to go out and get you. Many times, because of the possible severity of the tsunami waves that will be coming in, they might not. They might want to keep themselves safe. They're not going to put their lives in danger just because you did. So we are seeing someone in this cam who's out paddleboarding, but really ought not to be doing that.
Yeah, we're also getting reports now of the water receding over on Oahu's north shore as well. We're talking about Haleiwa. We're just seeing that coming in from one of our reporters out there.
Yeah, one of the hot spots that Chip McCreary had mentioned, right? They were keeping a close eye on Haleiwa right now and Haleiwa at the preliminary stages of this tsunami event. Our chief meteorologist, Jennifer Robbins, is standing by as well, looking at what we're seeing in terms of any sort of tidal movement, what we're seeing with the currents. What are you noticing on your end? What we're witnessing here, is this kind of typical for what we should expect in this type of event?
Very interesting to watch all of the elements come together right now, and it's unfolding before our eyes. And I really do think, like we were talking about in the press conference, that the initial wave is much smaller, and then we could see that build up within the next couple of hours. But you can actually see the direction of these currents. There is a little bit of stirring up that's going on where it is coming in different directions there. So this current is becoming more strong, and it is becoming a little bit more unpredictable, and that's why, like this gentleman or wahine that's in the water
Whoever's
right now, it's just too early to say if the waves are coming our way, and they're going to be coming in waves. We're talking about not just one big wave. We're going to have wave after wave and surges of energy. And historically speaking, because Hanalei is a place that we do have been impacted by tsunami waves. We've seen that along the north and east shores of the western end of the state, and along the north shores of Maui County, and then along Hilo, there historically have seen big significant tsunamis that have impacted them. So it does take time for all of this to build in, and like we're talking about, it's going to be a waiting game right now, and we'll have to be patient and just until we get that all clear to stay out of the water.
I'm going to bring your attention, though, just to about the middle of the screen. You can see the water, the current is moving from left to right. That is water leaving. That's what it looks like, water leaving. And you can see the waves that are rippling just behind that. Those are not incoming waves. Those are waves that are flowing over the reef and heading out. And then just in the foreground, ahead of the water that is moving from left to right on your screen, we can see more rocks that are being exposed right now.
I could see it too.
Yeah.
You see that receding a little bit more now.
If we would have had a side-by-side picture of what we were witnessing an hour before this, definitely looked very, calm with just the ripples of the waves coming into the shore. But now you can definitely see changes in the water.
Yeah, especially since I'm not familiar with Hanalei Bay, but if this were more of a daytime shot, usually what we see when we take this camera for our weather casts, it's basically water, it's beach. But then now I'm almost wondering if that's not only reach, I'm wondering if that's sand that may be exposed there.
Lava rock along the bay.
Actually, just look where the palm trees are. You can see where the palm trees are. Sand is starting to get exposed there.
Yeah, you can very clearly see the sand, the rocks. Of course, this is the big sign that the wave is growing. It's growing as it's approaching the shoreline. I'm trying to find where that person was, or where they were foiling, whether they were paddleboarding. Were they impacted by the water receding out?
Yeah, it's really hard to see. It's getting darker by the minute right now. And the water is a place not to be, of course, when you see how unpredictable the water is, and especially with the strong currents that accompany a tsunami.
Yeah, in fact, look, I can tell now, that's sand now. There's a lot of sand exposed there. And so you see the waves just off in the distance, but a lot of the beach, a lot of Hanalei Bay, the sand, even as you look to your left, to the left side of the screen, looks like more sand, looks like more of the reef, more of the rocks. It looks like the beach has receded probably about 100 feet.
Do we know how many buoys are in the area?
Not that many. I don't think there's any buoys there. The one that we do have, Jen's going to go take a look real quick.
I do remember while listening into that news conference from Dr. Chip McCrary, he says that they are monitoring 15 sea level gauges across the state as this event is happening to get more data, saying that it's going to be several hours before the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center may be able to lower the warning to an advisory when the waves go down, and it won't be until at least tomorrow morning when possibly that warning is canceled altogether.
And Steph, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it seems like the water might be rushing back in ever so slightly. You can see some waves forming, and some of the sand that was previously exposed is getting covered up. You can see those ripples right in the center of your screen. Luckily, we still have a little bit of daylight over near Hanalei Bay compared to our other tower cams. It seems like some water might be rushing in, but still a lot of sand exposed out there.
Right, all of this happening more than 40 minutes after the estimated arrival of the first waves in Hanalei Bay at 7:10. So these changes right now unfolding as we speak, and we're keeping a close eye on it. Any other observations there, Jen?
It's just really interesting to think about how much energy has moved across the ocean. With the tsunami wave, the initial surge of energy moving at 500 miles per hour across the ocean. And the wave direction really will tell a big story of what kind of wave we get. Like we were talking about, it's going across open waters. It has to cross multiple islands, atolls as well before it arrives here. So that's going to impact those initial waves. And then now we're starting to see that surge of energy that comes through. This is likely the second or third wave, like we're talking about, out of this whole tsunami event.
Yeah, and from our reporter out on the North Shore, also reporting earlier that the water was receding, and now seeing that the tide is returning and coming back. So we are also seeing these changes as well on our shores here on Oahu.
Yeah, and this is going to be an hours-long event. As the forecasters have been telling us, this is not a single wave. They've been telling us throughout this waiting period, this is going to be taking place over the course of several hours right now. Jen, you said it best. We are watching this unfold before our very eyes right now. We're going to be staying on this cam at Hanalei Bay, which is the first site of activity following this tsunami warning. We're also keeping close tabs right now on what is happening up and down the island chain. But, I mean, the way that forecasters were able to pinpoint down and kind of this timetable here from when the earthquake initially struck, I mean, it seems to be right on line with what we're seeing here, and the activity really lines up.
Yeah. You know, speaking of activity, guys, sorry, we just want to take another live look at a camera that has just become available for us.
Another vantage point of
Haleiwa Bay. So, pardon, sometimes the live shot there does freeze, but at least this gives us an idea. I know a viewer sent in a screenshot of the changes that were taking place, of the water receding earlier. Of course, this is a live look right now as we are seeing the water lapping over the shoreline there. Another vantage point of Haleiwa Bay.
It's hard to tell from this vantage point, but you know, we'd have to see if there's any receding water that happened before this. There looks like there's a little bit of a debris line, not that big. So that would be above the heart. That would be like the line of little tree limbs and so forth. We're going to try and stay on this shot as long as we can, just because we can. But of course, it's going to get dark, and once that happens, we won't be able to monitor this. But the waves will start hitting places like Waikiki, a little bit better lit. We have crews that are out and about all over the islands, and that includes Kahui, Dylan and Chetta's up on Maui. Right now, it looks like things have stabilized, but once again, the difference between waves, the time difference between waves can be 20 to 30 minutes. And so what we saw just a moment ago, where the water was going out and receding out of Haleiwa Bay and then coming back in, maybe not that big, but if we do get another episode of receding water while there's still some daylight to play with, we might be able to see that maybe in about 10, 15 minutes or thereabouts.
Typically, how many waves do you expect in an event like this?
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Very hard to say, because again, it depends on how the earthquake basically acted, what kind of earthquake it was. And so, you know, if there was a lot of shaking, then maybe there's a lot more waves. It was just one thrust, which it normally isn't, then, well, you're kind of stuck with a bunch of waves, you know. So basically, as Dr. McCreary said, this could be a case where we could be going on well into the night, and the first wave may not be the biggest one. It could be some of the successive waves that come after it.
I mean, if you remember, Ben, the 2011 tsunami, I mean, that we weren't expected to feel the effects and see the first waves until sometime around 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the all clear wasn't given until hours after that, and we were still waiting to see the effects. I remember it was a long period of waiting, but the damage was significant. Even though the waves looked small, you cannot see visibly the power and the force of that rushing water.
The surge coming in.
That is what caused all of the damage to the piers, to the boats, the boaters who weren't able to leave in time.
Yeah, that's why we're talking about the boats having to leave when they can, and the Coast Guard saying evacuate, take your vessels out to open water at least 300 feet deep so that you can avoid the surge. That's basically what it is, and we have been repeating it often. It's not a surface wave. It's just basically the energy that goes all the way from the ocean surface down to the bottom, and so you're going to get strong currents, and as, again, it gets into shallower water, it's going to go not only higher, but it's also going to get wider, and so you're going to have an area of strong currents that are going to impact. They're going to swirl around. They're going to do strange things that as they interact with the reefs and they interact with the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, just so that you could illustrate it more, Jen, I mean, if you could talk about the power of these waves, I mean, the governor said it as well. I mean, it's not the height of it, but he may be saying it's 3 feet, but it's strong enough to move a house or a car.
And we're talking about the forward motion in all of this, and it was moving at once speeds of 500 to 550 miles per hour. And then once it reaches more shallow waters, it does slow down to speeds about 30 miles per hour, but it's that forward momentum that gets it going. And like Ben was talking about, spreading exponentially and widening as it does. And that's why this is wraparound energy. It's not like one side of the island is protected and the other side is not. This is going to be a whole statewide event as it wraps around. And then as it interacts with our topography, with our outer reefs, with our inner reefs, then we will see what kind of wave that it's going to be facing into the next couple of hours. So very interesting to see the dynamics of all of this come together. A lot of numerical models are put together to predict the wave speed and arrival times. And I do think they did a great job with the arrival times with this one, because we have been seeing activity since the 7 o'clock hour.
It's almost like trying to predict what a hurricane can do. We're starting to get pretty good at predicting where it's going to go, but the intensity, like how strong a hurricane is, that is still pretty much up to the hurricane and what Mother Nature decides. Same thing with the tsunami is happening here, where we have been able to reasonably predict when it's going to arrive. But as far as how big the waves are going to get, a couple of reasons why, again, we don't really have a definite concrete answer. We cannot tell you for sure. We have been saying like 3 to 9 feet or thereabouts, but we're not sure. It's something that we just have to be prepared for. If it happens, you were prepared. If it doesn't happen, just give a good sigh of relief. We were prepared. You know what to do better next time.
And that is our job, to make sure that you are prepared, and in that we have our crews spread out all across the island to cover this event. And we actually want to take a live shot now of Oahu's North Shore. This, I believe, is the Haleiwa area where waters, we're told, seem to be receding there. We're trying to light up this area as best as we can with our light, of course.
We've received reports that water was receding in the area. We also have a clip of, you can show you more in better light of kind of what exactly was happening. Here's that shot right now, as we're just trying to keep tabs on how this timeline matches up with what was happening at Hanalei. This is happening in Haleiwa as well. You just look at the activity, what's happening with the coastline here, keeping a close eye on the receding aspect. So, this back out live. Visibility is poor because of the darkness, and so we're trying to get the best vantage point we can as possible in this.
It seems calm as far as you can see, just, from looking at it right now. You can't really see much, Ben or Jen.
Yeah, but the water has receded. It looks like a lot of wet sand that's in the foreground. So that was water, or that was sand that was underwater. You can see a water line on that rock there. That's probably where the water was just a few minutes ago. And so we are seeing the water recede. You can see the Rainbow Bridge off in the distance near the top of your screen. And so that gives you a little bit of basically what's going on.
That's a shot at North Shore right now. We also have a live Waikiki cam. Fortunately, there's good lighting on this cam here, so it gives us a better sense of what we're going to be seeing over the next several hours or so.
And you can also see some wet sand where the water's pushed up over the shoreline as well, Ben and Jen.
Yeah, there's that area to the bottom of the pier. That's a very gentle slope. That's a very gentle way to get into the ocean as far as the slope. So there's nothing particularly deep. You can go out several feet and you'll still be in waist-high water. And so the run-up can go farther because it's a gentler slope. On the other side, the Fort DeRussy side, it's a little bit steeper on that side, but you can definitely tell that there has been some water run-up, and also maybe it's either a run-up or the water has receded at this point. But I think, judging from where the beginning of the pier is, at least on the sand, the wet sand that you see there was a run-up. So that is because usually that path to the pier is usually pretty dry. And so if you've got the water running up that high, that means we did have something, and maybe more, again, could be on the way.
We want to pull up the Hanalei cam, but let's call for that one that was showing us a different vantage point, because we won't be able to really gather much. Yeah, we're trying to gather a different shot right here that provides a much more different view of Hanalei. It gives you that look at the coastline.
Yeah, and while we're taking a look at this, we just did get word from state officials that the next press conference to give us an update on what they're seeing and what the state has experienced is coming in at 8:20. So, of course, we'll bring that to you live as it comes. But as far as I can see here, it's really hard to make out any movements in the water, just the squall in the background, of course.
Yes, with some of the passing showers and the trade winds, and we do have a few swells moving through as well, coming in from the south and also the east. We're seeing some rising surf, and it's probably going to be a very important press conference coming up at 8:20. I think we're going to have more substantial data, more readings that they're going to share during that time, and that could give us an idea of what these initial waves have been doing. But we are seeing a lot of run-up across the entire island chain, and also those strong currents. The best case scenario out of all of this is getting those strong currents and not a whole lot of coastal flooding. So that's what we're hoping for. All of this initial painting of what's been happening with the tsunami, I hope that continues on for the next couple of hours.
Yeah, you look at there was a heart that was in the middle of this live shot a little bit earlier, and the water's been reaching the heart and maybe mud washed over it for all I can tell. It's not the best quality picture, and also this is probably that squall that we saw off in the distance in the earlier Haleiwa Bay cam, but probably a combination of a little bit of rain, but also the fact that the water is a little bit higher now than we saw a little bit earlier when there was still adequate daylight. The debris line has moved up a little bit further, and so there's that squall line off in the distance. Again, just because of the lack of daylight, it's pretty much gone. We're seeing the last bits of dusk here, so it's going to be harder and harder to tell. So we're going to be looking at some of the other cameras that have better lighting around the state as this energy from the tsunami continues to move down the island chain. And so we're expecting, like, for example, Hawaii Island maybe to get some action. We should be able to see it a little bit better as we get to, say, for example, Coconut Island. This is the shot now. The water is very calm there, but when you look at the bridge that goes over Coconut Island, many times when there is a tsunami, even if it's a small one, you can definitely see the current. I'm not seeing it right now.
Let's go to our Drew Davis now with some new data.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. Can we pull up really quickly graphics 12 so you can see what's going on? This is the latest look at the buoys over at Nawiliwili over on Kauai. Again, we are seeing impacts from the tsunami. Again, this could be one wave. This could be the first of many to impact Kauai. Of course, we haven't been seeing too many impacts over at Hanalei, but this is a chart from the NOAA buoy over at Nawiliwili. Again, we have been seeing some of the wave crests getting above 2 feet above the water level at that time. Again, we are seeing high tide right around now for most of the state, and it drops down very quickly to below 1 foot below the normal water level, so about half a foot below zero. Again, we are seeing impacts in terms of the tsunami wave right now. And again, the message here, and it's been the message all afternoon, is that this is not a one-wave event. We've seen the receding in Hanalei so far, and we've seen the water come back. We could continue to see receding, and now without light, it'll be harder to analyze. It'll be harder to really take a look at. But this is proof that we are seeing some of the impacts, at least from the buoy readings that we have so far.
All right,
and
guys,
I just got a text message from Robert Ballard from the National Weather Service, and he said the latest tsunami warning siren bulletin says 4-foot amplitude at Haleiwa, so that's 1.2 meters. So 4-foot amplitude was the latest reading that they got in Haleiwa.
And basically amplitude is like trough to crest, if I'm not mistaken, and so that's quite a bit, and we did get confirmation that the water line in that earlier live shot that we got from Haleiwa, that's where the water was. And so there was definitely a good receding of water at the Haleiwa, that looked like Ali'i Beach. I'm pretty sure that's the shoreline right at Ali'i Beach. And so the water did go down about 2 feet. Maybe it's not rushing back, but we are seeing the changes in tidal levels because of the tsunami. And again, as we're watching this live look near Dukahanamoku Beach and close to the lagoon there, waves are coming in as normal, but you can definitely see what's a high water line that did did come in a little bit earlier, and we're just awaiting possibly the next receding water episode and then another wave coming in right behind that.
And Ben, because the event is here, and right now we're in the thick of it based off of the measurements that are coming in, what can we say about Hawaii's underwater topography and its impact on the surges that are coming in?
Well, again, it kind of depends on where you are. Like, for example, Honolulu Bay, I believe it's pretty shallow. Waimea Bay, it is shallower and possibly, but you will get a little bit more run up there. A good example, however, years ago, I remember there were people looking at Makapu'u. Makapu'u, not that deep. So if it was a big tsunami, we would see water just basically Makapu'u emptying out and then coming back in. That would be possibly in a worst case scenario tsunami. But, those areas where there's a gentle slope underneath the water, coming in, basically that spells trouble, If it is a little bit more abrupt, shall we say, like if there's cliffs like the Nepali coastline, some of those areas, the Kaiwi coastline, even, for example, you may not get that much of a run up or some of that energy, but basically what we're looking at is if it is a gentle slope like Makapu'u, or it's shallower, after it gets past the deeper water and you start hitting that area. Even Hanauma Bay could also see some higher water because you get the reef, it's a little bit deeper there, and then it hits the reef and then it'll start pushing over.
So it's been almost an hour since the first predicted waves arrived at Hanalei Bay as we take this live look. And we are expecting an update from state officials at 8:20. And until then, I guess Ben, Drew, and Jen, what kinds of data are you?
Just one wave.
Hey, listen, if you own a business that makes over $200,000 per year in gross revenue, what if I told you there's a group of
pretty quickly, and the water came back in pretty quickly after that. Ben, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, when the water came back in, it looked kind of gentle, but remember that's energy again, the whole ocean energy coming in. It's not just the surface. And so the concern that we have, once more, the currents, and Steph, as you were talking about earlier, we're talking about the currents that can cause damage over at La Mariana Harbor. That's when we saw boats getting pulled from their moorings, crashing into the piers, crashing into each other, those sorts of things. And so that is still a danger, and you definitely don't want to be caught in that particular energy because, if you've ever been in a rip current, and I hope you never have, you get caught in it. This is going to be like a whole bunch of different currents. Yeah. It's basically a stirring up of the water. And you asked earlier, Mark, about the behavior underneath. Like if you go to pipeline right now, probably there's going to be water all kapakai at the moment, just all over the place. Currents are going to be just going in every which way. And so it's a very dangerous time to be in the water, but also on the shoreline and also along channels, rivers, streams, those areas, because you could still have energy that's going to be coming in through the rivers. And so just stay a good distance. We're seeing about 100 feet, just in case. Yeah, that's good.
And like you mentioned on the Hanalei cam, when we were watching the water recede, there was very different movements in the currents right before the water receded. We could see water moving out, moving in. So again, strong currents being created. And just behind me, Ben, I do want to show the Na Wili Wili's latest look. You can see the red right here is the typical water level. Typically, when you see water levels at buoys, you use them to track high tide and low tide. High tide and low tide. Of course, we're not seeing that right now because if you look at the end of this, we have this really big shock in terms of the water level. The buoy is going up and down very quickly. Again, this is a snapshot from about 10 minutes ago, so we might be seeing an updated look at that coming up here in a little bit. We'll make sure to show you that. But I do want to say that this may be the first wave of many. Again, this is Na Wili Wili. This is on the over in Kauai County. We were taking a look at Haleiwa as well. So a lot can change. We're still, as Steph has mentioned, in the thick of it. The initial prediction, 7:17 p.m. We haven't seen a large wave come in yet that's really impacted, but we have seen receding in Hanalei. We've seen receding over in Haleiwa. So a lot to watch still.
Yeah, we haven't, we don't know what the situation is like at Haleiwa Harbor, Haleiwa Boat Harbor. Obviously not safe to go there right now, but, you know, we're just trying to see, we'll determine a little bit later just how many people took their vessels out into the open ocean. A little bit earlier, we did talk to one of the boaters. His boat was already on, you know, basically on the trailer, getting ready to evacuate that way. And he was talking about how some of the other vessel owners were heading out to sea just because you don't want to be in that mess, you know, kind of like being in a washing machine in a way, but that would be the best way to kind of describe what's going on. And then in areas like the bays and some of the harbors, you're going to get that pull of the water and you're going to get that push of the water once again, and that's what we've been also seeing in Haleiwa Bay.
Yeah, and here's another look. This is a snapshot from a little while ago from Sand Island in the Midway Islands, so over near Midway Atoll. Again, this data is a little bit outdated, but it is just a look at, you can see the tsunami wave again. Ben, if you just point out where that shock is, again, up and down very quickly. That's how the buoys work. They're used to measure the high tide and low tide out there. And they're a very great tool to give us kind of an idea of how large these tsunami waves are. And again, the message is it's not just one wave, and we're going to continue watching it very closely.
Yeah, but just so you know, this is one of the pieces of data that we use when we have, for example, king tides, because the blue line is basically your normal water level. The red line is the actual recorded water level. And so you see how it's supposed to be gentle. We had a high tide coming, but you have don't. So that almost tells me 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 waves. First one may have been the biggest one, and they get smaller. But again, this is just a snapshot. Later data may come in, and then we may just get, you know, maybe another bigger wave once again.
And a great reminder that this is coinciding with high tide right now. So the wave, the tsunami wave, the column of water riding on top of the actual sea level is riding on top of high tide, which is already elevated. So it makes it a little bit more of concern. That's it for Ben and I at the weather desk. Let's send it back to Mark and Steph at the anchor desk.
Ben and Drew, thank you very much. Very useful, very critical information as we are tracking this. We are approaching about an hour since the first activity that we saw at Haleiwa Bay. So far, we've seen water levels recede both at Hanalei, Nawiliwili, and Haleiwa as well as we're tracking this.
That's right, and we just got word that we are going to get another update from Pacific Tsunami Warning Center officials in just a bit. But before then, we want to turn things over now to our reporter Dylan Ancheta, who is live on Maui for us. Dylan.
Aloha, thank you so much. I am located at the Wailuku Community Center. This is one of a number of gyms that have opened here on Maui. And I can tell you that the atmosphere here is rather relaxed. People are calm. People are kind of just waiting to hear what is going on. There are a lot of kupuna members here at this shelter. I would say there's about 50 to 60 or so people between the inside and the outside. Some community members have said that many other people chose other shelters to go to, but here at the Wailuku Community Center, people are kind of just hanging out and waiting to hear any updates, any news. You know, there is also some concern that Red Cross officials are here, but they don't have a lot of supplies, not a lot of water, not a lot of snacks. So if you are going, or if you are at one of those shelters, hopefully you have brought your own. They do allow pets at the shelters here, and so I was here earlier today when the last siren alert went off. There's one just outside this building here, and that was quite loud, quite noticeable. And I spoke to some people earlier in the day as I just got to this shelter. I've been here for a couple hours now. Here's what they said. Aloha from the Wailuku Community Center. This is one of several spots that have opened as official shelters here in Maui County. I'm joined by Kathleen, Joseph, Mary, and Maria. They are here riding out this impending tsunami. First off, how are you folks feeling today?
Scared. This out of all that I've been through with all the tsunami warnings, this kind of feel really more like it's bound to happen, and I'm hoping it doesn't. Praying a lot for our homes especially those who live close right next to the beach, which I do. So.
And I want to ask, as Maui residents, were you folks prepared for this? Were you ready to pack up and go, or, are you just kind of winging it here tonight?
We're just kind of winging it because this is not something we're used to. And there are only so many roads on Maui. So, for example, for me to call Joe and let him know we just got this warning, so you need to leave Kihei now because there's only 2 roads in and out. And he felt he had more time, but it's like we're winging it. It's not something that we would have planned. It's better prepare us for this time, and the traffic is horrible.
Maria, you just came from inside the shelter. How many people are in there right now, and kind of set the scene for us?
There's probably about 50 of them. Yeah, yes. I was like, let's go, because, I was afraid that we're not going to have space. Yeah, but it's pretty good. It has AC, and at least we get bathroom here. But yeah, I'm kind of like scared.
And Joe, I want to ask you, how are you feeling through all of this?
I feel like I'm feeling, especially when you go out, like, what, a tsunami coming, you gotta go get this and go get this and go get this. At the end I came out, I forgot to spam and the toilet paper.
That's the first thing I told my friend. I said, hey, you need toilet paper, hand towels, water. That's it.
So right now, without the supplies of the shelter, what supplies do you folks personally have?
We were so unprepared for this that when Joe picked me up at work and we went right up the road to Kalui Food Line, which is like a 5-minute drive, and picked up whatever we could grab, and everything was pretty much sold out, deli and all that. So we grabbed a little bit of sushi, sandwich, and that was all we could get. And it took us an hour and a half from there to get back to the center that I work at. 5-minute drive, took us an hour and a half, and just to go and get my car and then head over here. So we didn't get much.
That is a wild drive time. And lastly, Mary, I want to ask you, you mentioned you have the trailer. What was it like for you to evacuate?
Prepared with everything in the trailer right now, that my personal belongings are my clothes, my ice box, my brand new freezer that I brought 3 weeks ago. It's going to take a loss because it's in the garage back home. And that's about it. Other than that, beddings, everything, the whole trailer. And my brothers and my family, my sisters and my brothers are happy that I invested in this. And, it's the biggest place to park it right now is at Popohaku. And, yeah, prepared with everything in the trailer.
Absolutely.
We are so grateful and glad for all of the early warning, all the sirens that go off that let us know. So we are definitely prepared in that way, and that they're keeping us informed and aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. And that is the latest from the people here on the Valley Isle. I thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts on this. The nerves are unsettled, so to speak, but the people of Maui often look out for each other and take care of each other. And we are here once again at the Wailuku Community Center, which is one of the shelters here tonight. And now I understand we have a press conference with Haleiwa. Let's go ahead and send things back to the studio.
So much, Dylan and Cheto, for reporting for us live on Maui. But unfortunately, we are still trying to get that live shot up right now. We're having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're trying to pull up a signal right now. This would be a live news conference. An update from Haleiwa. Governor Josh Green and state emergency officials will be briefing us on the latest of the situation. We are still rolling on the news conference. So although we may not be taking it live right now, we will be bringing it to you in its entirety when we do get that up and running. In the meantime,
in case something significant happens. On transportation roadways, don't get on the road at all unless you need to. Just lay low tonight and watch television, please. If you're on a coastal road and you've been in gridlock, if that happens anywhere, and we don't think that's happening, you have to be at least 100 feet above sea level or 2 miles inland just in case. But at this point, we're not seeing that problem. The airports have not yet been impacted, of course, by a wave, but all flights in and out of Maui have been canceled for tonight. There are about 200 people sheltering at the terminal. We hope to take care of them comfortably. We'll certainly do that. the Department of Transportation shut down the Maui Airport lobby, and there are no flights out just yet. In the morning, those sheltering, we're going to rescreen them, and we're going to take care of them. Like I said, all clear, like I said, has not happened yet. Just be a little safe for a little longer. We are going to have another signature meeting at about 9 p.m. and then we will have Mr. Barrios, our captain, and our general come back out and give you at least one more update tonight. I'm going to defer to Barrios, but look, everything has been okay so far. We haven't seen a big wave. But when that water receded in Haleiwa and we saw some boats kind of laying on the dry rock and sand, that gave us pause. That doesn't happen for no reason. When the water pulls back like that, that means there's activity in the ocean. So again, we keep our fingers crossed that we don't suffer a big tsunami. Again, people have been very thoughtful and very safe, and that's something we appreciate. Aloha.
Aloha. Like the governor said, there is energy in the ocean. There were small measurements of smaller waves, and they want to see, the scientists are telling us, we want to see a few of them to know that we're in the clear. So the window is still 2 to 3 hours that we're watching this energy in the Pacific Ocean. So the counties have opened shelters and places of refuge. If the citizens need it, they can use that. We're postured to support those shelters with wraparound services if needed. There's also Red Cross that's standing by. There's and it's really this sense of aloha in the state. Family Promise of Hawaii, they're reaching and leaning forward to say that they can help folks. If the public needs assistance, we'll post their phone number and email that if people are impacted and need assistance, they can reach out. So there's a lot of entities, a lot of community involvement, and it's wonderful to see how the state is reacting to a very serious threat to our public and to the safety of the state. Thank you.
Mahalo, Administrator Barros. Finally, I'd like to bring up Captain Nick Wurst, Commander Sector Honolulu and Captain of the Port.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Governor. As stated, Captain Nick Wurst, Sector Honolulu. Our top priorities for the Coast Guard right now are the safety of life, the safety of our ports, and then any environmental impacts to the state. In anticipation of that, we have closed all commercial harbors and have ordered evacuation of those harbors to mitigate risk. In addition, have Coast Guard assets deployed. That's small boats, ships, and planes and aircraft pre-deployed. So post-impact, we are ready to respond very quickly to any search and rescue cases, to be able to assess the ports to make sure they're safe to be reopened for commerce, and then also any environmental impacts, we can respond to that. So we are working in unison with the state, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, at this time, we're going to facilitate questions from the media, and we'll start with Andrew, Honolulu Star Advertiser.
Can you let us know who gives input, most important input on determining an all clear if warranted?
So the question is, who gives the most important input on determining an all clear?
We're going to turn to Dr. Chip at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. They're on the calls with the governor. They're advising the leadership, and they'll give us an indication of what they believe, and then it'll be an executive order from here.
Okay, next I'm going to go to Le'ui, KITV4.
Do you know what is closely being looked at to monitor and give a cycle in this scenario?
So the question is around what are the indicators for closely monitoring the surge cycle?
Well, there's multiple readings of the waves all across the Pacific and then all across the islands. So there's a printout that we see dozens of those measurements, and they've ranged from 0.23 meters, in some cases, to over a meter. So we have had a couple waves of that size. The largest wave we believe we saw was in Haleiwa. Over a meter, well over a meter. And then, of course, the pause that we had was also watching the shoreline recede, where we saw, the water pull back 20 or 30 feet. that seemed like an anticipated large wave. So that's what we've all seen historically. We're really hoping that we are out of harm's way. Again, we don't want anyone to let their guard down. We want it to go another couple hours. As the waves cycle smaller and smaller, that's how we know that we're ending this concern.
Mahalo, Governor. Up next, Ashley, Hawaii Public Radio.
So when the all clear comes through, would that mean that the water is back to normal and no longer receding? I guess what are like the clear indicator that it's all completed?
So the question is, when the all clear comes or is finalized and communicated, what does that mean with regard to the water?
I think that means that we reach functional zero risk because we're able to continue to monitor waves all throughout the Pacific, including the multiple different locations that we described earlier. But most importantly, as the waves end generation, when they're hitting our own shorelines, which can cause more wave activity, then we know it's over. So we'll be hopeful. Also, we'll see the tides go down, which is, not nothing. We did observe pretty significant waves on the other side of the Pacific. In Japan, there were 3-meter waves, and we saw some of them cascade over, over their shoreline. So that's a big concern. But again, so far, so good. We had a couple fender benders on the highway, which we're always, watching and we're careful about. A couple people went home from work a little early today. But that's all an excellent outcome if we don't end up having, a serious tsunami like we did in past decades.
Final question going to Daryl Huff, Hawaii News Now.
Okay, so looking forward, what I'm trying to understand is when you say we had a 3-foot wave as long as ago, that was the water receded, came back in. We didn't have a wave go up onto Haleiwa or parking lot.
Monitoring cameras, we're watching those waves. So again, the best case is we get some of those smaller waves that don't inundate and flood coastlines.
Okay, well, look, thank you, everyone, for your patience. We, like I said, are going to get another update from the scientific community around 9, and then we'll communicate with you. We'll reach out through social media and text shortly thereafter in case there's any update. And then, hopefully, fingers crossed, the gentleman will be able to come up and hopefully give us the all clear in 2 or 3 hours, perhaps by 11 tonight. But we want to still be cautious. There's just no reason to take any risks. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being mindful of the large risk. If large waves did come over the shore, we know there would be harm and loss of life. So we just don't want to lose any of our people. Aloha.
Woke up and they were shocked. Owning breaking news, utter devastation, telling important stories. You can feel the excitement building, putting a lot of issues in context. For NBC News, I'm Tom Yamas. That's what we do every night.
This viral productivity tool is shutting down. Well, sort of. This guy used to work at
Huge surges of energy to travel across the ocean, and the origin in the past has been Alaska, Chile, Japan, and Russia. And the history has showed us the magnitude and depth between these do play a big role, but even with a strong magnitude earthquake like 8.8 in 2010, it was only about 3 feet when it comes to the wave heights during that time. So it highly depends on the direction as it travels over the ocean. evacuation, a lot of elements as it comes our way. But here's a friendly reminder, the power of water. Usually we talk about this when we get a lot of flooding from rain, but 1 foot can pick up cars, 2 feet can move SUVs and heavy trucks. And the power of water is substantial when it comes to this tsunami energy. We'll take a deeper look at all of these elements coming together in a little bit, but first, back to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Jen, for that important information as we continue to await the information just released from Pacific Tsunami Warning Center officials there. But as we take a live look now at this Waikiki camera live view, you can see, just as Governor Green mentioned, another positive thing that came out of this event is that everybody heeded the warnings.
Yes.
Coastlines are clear. He said just minus a couple of fender benders out on the roadways. Everybody showed that aloha spirit. They listened to officials, and you can see right now, nobody on the beach, minus that one foiler or stand-up paddleboarder out in Hanalei Bay that we spotted earlier tonight. But he says, let's continue to kokua. Let's continue to stay in this together and have this positive outcome, because this is not over yet.
No, precisely. We're still in the window right now. We're staying on this cam because it is our only visible cam. But yeah, you think about kind of how this afternoon played out, right? And the response time that has happened. So you had the initial quake at 1:30. The severity was upgraded to an 8.8, and then the warning came down about 3 o'clock this afternoon, around 2:45 or so. So in that time, up until you hit 7:15, that was enough time for, action to be taken in terms of locating evacuation shelters, clearing up the roadways. Yes, we saw the traffic, but, in the hours since, that has dissipated. That coincided with rush hour traffic, and then just the response county by county across the state, with state crews going out there, making sure that off the coast, off the shoreline right now, you still have some people out there taking their chances. But, from what we heard in the governor's most recent remarks about 10 minutes ago, yes, we are still in the window, but we did hear the phrase all clear being mentioned several times in those remarks. All clear has not been given yet, but just based off of the initial readings that have come in so far, there seems to be some positive developments on what we have seen from the initial surge. And going back to, you think back to the different models that we have seen from just buoy measurings, and you see that first spike that you have, the very dramatic spike within the first couple of waves, and after that you have some smaller spikes. So let's just hope, from what we have seen so far, it remains to just be current surges, nothing in the way of coastal flooding, knock on wood.
Right, a live look now at Honolulu Harbor with Aloha Tower shining brightly there. You can see clearly that all of the boats have left, the fishing boats. Coast Guard cutter has left as well, as soon as that tsunami warning siren went off. And we won't be hearing any more sirens after the 7:10 initial arrival of those waves, but we are still heavily monitoring any changes that we will be seeing on our coastlines. We also want to give an update that Kole Kole Pass is officially closed. Of course, military officials jumped in and worked with the State Department of Transportation to open up that valuable key passageway to allow West Oahu residents who are near the coastlines to evacuate readily. So they closed Kole Kole Pass at approximately 8:15 tonight due to low visibility, they say, but they did report that an estimated 410 residents were able to utilize that key passageway thanks to the military for making that available to them.
Yeah, it's precisely what its intent, and again, that's what it's there for, right? To, come to the aid of leeward Oahu residents during these types of situations. And so far, as we give you a look from our Hilo cam, as we have seen how these images have developed over the course of the last couple of hours or so, and how daylight has dissipated, no major activity in terms of coastal flooding. We saw the water receding when we were looking at that Hanalei Bay cam. Hanalei Bay, the water receding from the shots we were getting at Haleiwa Harbor. We are getting some reports of water kind of, moving in at Maunalua Bay out in East Honolulu. Will be we are told the parking lot is filled with water out at Coconut Island out in Hilo. As you can see from this cam, it's on the bottom left of your screen.
Yep.
Jen may cut here.
Yeah, so
you see it too, right?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, if you look closely, and we want to thank our producer for showing us, it's really hard to make out because of course it is nighttime and all of these changes are taking place. But yes, the bottom right corner there, you can see the parking lot.
Actually, bottom left.
Bottom left, yes,
Yeah.
yes, that left.
Yeah, the other left.
It is completely flooded. Ben and Drew, you could speak about this, and of course, Jen also mentioned high tides playing a role.
Yeah, high tides do play a role, but remember earlier, this is several hours ago, and I mentioned about how this is a place where the currents go in and out by that bridge. Now, usually that parking lot 4 stalls just to the right under the street light over there, just above the palm tree to the bottom left. So that is usually dry land. That is very dry. You can park your car there. I've done live shots from that particular area during tropical cyclones and so forth. So yeah, apparently while we were going through the various and sundry press conferences and getting more data, one thing that has apparently happened is that the ocean, a tsunami, came and flooded the parking lot at Coconut Island, and there it is in this live shot. So that's all ocean water that came in. And I was trying to look a little bit earlier before we pointed out the fact that the parking lot is flooded. I was trying to look at the currents beneath the bridge.
That's right.
And, it looks a little weird right now. It may be coming in again for, we'll take a look at some of the spikes, but there is some current that's going on over there that I can kind of detect, but basically the sign that something is going on, the parking lot in the foreground in front of the Coconut Island Bridge, it's flooded. It's basically, we've had something, a significant wave height come in as well.
Yeah, and as we're seeing that right now, so the parking lot of Coconut Island is flooded. We also have the video queued up from Mauna Lua Bay with the water coming in. Let's see if we can play that. And so
this is in East Oahu, Hawaii Kai. Wow.
Now this is during, we have construction in the area right now for a dredging project. Who knows how that will be impacted, but you're just seeing how, whereas we were watching the water around the 7:15 time frame, okay, the first expected window of arrival for this tsunami, kind of the different effects that it is having. If what we are seeing is water moving in, a parking lot flooded, we will take that from what we have seen in the past, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But most importantly, so Pacific Tsunami Warning Center officials saying before they give the all clear, yes, these are positive signs, but they are going to hope that we continue to see more of these smaller waves in the next series of waves that are set to arrive to Hawaii before giving the all clear.
And I want to take another look at some of the data from the Midway Atoll. Of course, the buoy that we've been watching all evening out there, of course, is kind of giving us a picture out of how these waves are going to be moving in. We've got open water in between the peninsula where the earthquake happened and Hawaii. So we really don't have a good idea of a good way to analyze it along the way as it's tracking towards the island chain. Ben and I are here in the Weather Center right now. We are looking at this data. This is from the Sand Island Midway Atoll buoy. You can actually, over the last few hours, again, we've been watching the actual waves from the tsunami moving in. Again, Ben, it's up and down, up and down. The buoy is rising very quickly, dropping very quickly. I do want to point out just again, we've even seen shock or another large boost in the at the end there. This happened around 7:06 p.m. local time for the Midway Atoll. Again, we're still watching. That's why we haven't seen the all clear yet. We're still seeing spikes coming in on the buoys.
Yeah, a little bit earlier we showed you like these 4 spikes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. They get smaller. 2 smaller spikes, and then we've got this next spike, spike number 5, I guess I'll call it. And this one is obviously larger than the first one. So it's not necessary that the first wave was the biggest. We're not seeing that.
Yeah.
We're already seeing some data that shows that we did have a much higher wave, and that could have possibly moved in. This might have been the one that flooded Coconut Island's parking lot.
And Jennifer Robbins, Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins mentioned that's a hot spot. Hilo Bay is a hot spot for flooding, especially when it comes to past tsunamis. And we're getting word from our reporter, our producer, that we are seeing some flooding over in Hilo Bay. We want to take you back out there. Still seeing some water moving into.
It's a closer shot here.
Yes, moving into the parking lot there.
Yeah, looks like, there we go. Yeah, looks like, I'm just going to move away from the desk for a moment, but it looks like, yeah, there's water. We can't really tell where the edge is, but because of darkness, but it looks like more water has been starting to move into the parking lot there. You can see on the right side of your screen where that little light reflection is, that might be a little bit of water movement there that's been happening, but that parking lot is definitely flooded. Just looking to see if it's getting a little bit higher or if some of the water is actually leaving the parking lot or trying to drain from the parking lot at this point. But you can see most of the parking lot at Coconut Island and Hilo Bay basically got inundated by ocean. Yep. So that's a sign that we have had some tsunami waves that have been moving through. They're not big, but once again, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of those times where not having the worst case scenario is definitely something to celebrate. But again, we're not completely done with this event yet because as we've been emphasizing over and over, this is not one wave, this is a series of, you know, an update. And we've also got an update now from Chip McCreary, the head of the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Let's go there now.
The Big Island now, and we actually got our largest reading so far at 4.5 feet from crest to trough, so from the bottom of the wave to the top about. That's just the initial wave so far there. Some of the other readings have come up here. Maybe I've reported these before, but about 8 feet crest to trough at Kahului. Again, about 8 feet crest to trough in Haleiwa. 3 feet, actually that grew a little bit, in Hanalei. It's also about 4 feet crest to trough in Hanalei. So again, the oscillations are continuing, and they're in places where it's already hit, maybe on Kauai. Hopefully they're starting to die down a bit, but as I mentioned before, we want to monitor this for quite a few wave cycles to make sure the pattern is really going down and it's not going to pop back up again, which it does. This is a pretty standard pattern that things will go down a couple of waves and come up again. So we'll just be, our job right now for Hawaii is just to continue monitoring this and reporting the readings. And I mean, we issued another bulletin just maybe about half an hour ago with our latest readings, and we'll just continue to do that.
Can you tell us what kind of damage that size waves could do?
Oh, it depends. They're not, they're the kind of thing all along a coastline, and gauges are usually in fairly protected places inside a harbor, so oftentimes it's not the largest reading you see on a gauge, because gauge is in a protected place because they want them to last a long time versus putting them on an open coast. So we're reporting what we see on these gauges, but we don't know what's actually happening comprehensively along a coast. So if the water comes up, I think I mentioned once before, for a human, if you're standing in water even up to your knee and it's fast moving, water can easily sweep you off your feet. And so water has a lot of power when it's flowing fast, and when it comes onto the land, that's what's happening. It's flowing fast. So it can damage structures. But so far we haven't seen anything too big, but still a little bit early. So
we're not out of the woods yet.
We're not out of the woods yet. But I'm quite.
As you stay off the beaches, you stay behind the dune line. please, enjoy our community, our businesses, our sites, but just make good, appropriate decisions.
And Justin, you had mentioned some beach closures. I'm not sure if all of that, I know you'd said some beaches might have some sort of barricade or sign or something, but can you give us a sense of how many beaches we're talking where you do have signs up?
Yeah, so I think that's an ongoing decision. We've been in constant communication with state parks about their decisions. There haven't been any specific beach closures at this point. I mean, with the onset being at midnight, our beaches typically close, especially in the state park, at sunset. I'll need to connect with state parks, probably in the morning to see if there are any additional actions that they are taking. But even absent beach closures, I think people just need to be aware, they shouldn't probably be on the beach tomorrow.
And I know it's still early in this process, but, agencies, communities along the coast prepare for tsunamis, the threat of tsunamis. But so far, do you feel like all of the preparations you've had have played out well? Or are there any takeaways that after today you're going to try to implement or do differently going forward?
Yes, for sure. I mean, every opportunity we have is a learning opportunity for continuous improvement. I think one of the biggest takeaways from today is around public alerting and that tiered response to these types of events, because, yes, there'll be broad public awareness around an earthquake happening that will be disseminated to the public along with us. It's just as the situation evolves and we continue to analyze, we may see upgrades or downgrades in products that are issued. So you may see us later come out and issue actions, to the public based on how those products are issued. So there's not like an immediate rush to get, alerts out, just because we want to make sure they're being used appropriately for potential life-threatening impacts. But I think it's important for people. We really encourage folks to go out and sign up for alerting, but really tracking what products you've signed up for, what options you've selected, because some people may have gotten alerts that were pushed through from the National Weather Service through our alerting platform. But I think it's really an opportunity for the public to revisit, what have I signed up for? Have I signed up for all the appropriate resources that are available to keep me informed? And I think it really some public education around how alerting is issued.
Interesting. Really important information there. Justin Gibbs, Director of Clatsop County Emergency Management. Thank you so much for staying up late with us and filling us in on everything we know.
Yeah, thank you all. I thank you for pushing out timely and accurate information that's so helpful to us. So,
absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep, you have a good evening.
Okay, now to Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino. Matt, really interesting to hear from Justin Gibbs there with Clatsop County. He was kind of echoing what you had said earlier, that people just need to make good decisions.
The best thing about this is that the awareness that we are helping to create, because eventually we're going to get a big earthquake off the Oregon coast, and this will all be happening in a much more condensed timeline instead of having 6-8 hours to think about this and have an advisory. It'll be like, no, we got 20 minutes before serious waves reach the Oregon coast. So that's not happening this time, which is great because the earthquake was across the ocean off the coast of Russia, the Kamchatka Peninsula near Petropavlovsk. 8.8, one of the 10 strongest earthquakes on record on the planet, which is amazing. We don't get 8.8s very often. And if you look at the amount of energy dispensed by an 8 or 9 magnitude earthquake, 1 trillion pounds of explosives for a magnitude 9. So we weren't quite there, but well over in the billion.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards because we've printed them for millions of small businesses over the past 25 years. But we also print signs.
Continuing basically until further notice, until we see the energy all dispersed across the ocean and we're not getting waves coming and going from the tsunami. Then the advisory will be canceled when we see that settle down and the deep ocean buoys are reflecting that we're not getting any more waves from the tsunami, from the earthquake rolling across the Pacific Ocean. Now, again, this doesn't have to be a dramatic event to be an important event. The communication of this has been important, but back in 2011, we didn't see big, tall waves, but we saw a lot of surging water, fast-moving water coming in and out of bays. It did damage in places like Crescent City and Port Orford, even though the waves themselves weren't a great height. So it's not really a fair comparison to say, oh, this is not as big as a winter storm wave, because it's of a completely different nature compared to those types of waves. Now, the tsunami advisory continues all the way down to the coast of Mexico there, too. The arrival times for Southern California will be later, more like 1 a.m. But we're now in the window when we expect to see our first initial waves, or surges, I should say, reaching the coast of Oregon and Washington. Here are the arrival times, 11:55 for Seaside and Newport, which was like 2 minutes ago. So, again, we're in the zone now. But keep in mind, it's not just one wave. It'll be a series of waves, and there can be 10, 20 minutes between each wave. So it could be the third or fourth surge is the one that really gets people's attention, does some damage, creates some unusual currents and patterns in the water that can damage boats, and if you're on the beach, can lead to issues there, which is why we have a tsunami advisory, which means stay out, exactly that, stay out of the ocean, stay off the beach, but no evacuations are necessary, which is great to see. I'll show you the buoy reports. And again, this isn't really a fair comparison because these are just normal ocean waves. These are not showing tsunami waves. So 3-4 feet, fairly typical for the summertime. Now down in Hawaii, they have a tsunami warning, and their wave forecast, I believe, has come down a bit, but they have seen some fairly decent water movement along the shore there. This was the evacuation pattern on the north shore of Oahu that a friend of mine sent to me. And you can see the line of cars there as folks all along the Hawaiian Islands had to move inland and get well away from the shore because of the threat. We, of course, live on the ring of fire surrounding the Pacific Ocean. We get a lot of earthquakes. Each one of these circles represents an earthquake. There's the big one from today. But, of course, if they're not over or under the ocean, they don't create tsunamis, so we don't have the threat that we're talking about. So that's what's going on. We're still waiting to see what kind of impact we have on the coast of Oregon and Washington. Likely not huge, but again, those surges of water that'll be coming in starting now and continuing potentially for several hours can do some damage, guys.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much for that. And as we track the impact to coastal communities up and down the coast, we want to bring in Blair Best with the latest from Seaside and Astoria.
Yeah, Blair, what are officials there telling you?
So coastal communities are on alert tonight, but at last check, not too concerned. Officials there say while higher than normal waves are expected to hit the beaches, they're not predicted to be enough to cause widespread evacuations. That being said, people have been asked to leave the beaches out of caution. At this time of year, there are a lot of tourists. Now, when we look at Seaside, for example, that city is arguably one of the most vulnerable when it comes to this kind of a threat. And that's for several reasons. Here's Seaside City Manager Spencer Kyle.
I think for tsunamis, Seaside is the most vulnerable along the Oregon coast. We are the lowest in elevation. We have a high population and density of people close to the beach.
Now, at the same time the alerts came in just before 5 this evening, the city of Seaside also had an unexplained power outage. It wasn't connected in any way to the tsunami advisory, but it did cause chaos and concern in the community for a few hours. The city manager tells me conditions tonight will actually work in their favor.
Coincides with low tide, so it actually is the best possible scenario we could see for Seaside. Because of the low tide, I'm not sure if it will even be noticed, but we're advising people to stay off the beaches. This could affect currents and things like that in the ocean, in our estuary and things like that. So if people just stay back from that, I think everyone should be just fine.
I also checked in with Astoria's emergency manager, and he tells me since they're inland, they're expecting even less of an impact.
It's just an advisory for us, and the expectation that we've been given from the Weather Service is less than a foot of a wave.
Now, there are also a lot of fishing vessels currently at sea based out of Astoria. The emergency manager tells me it's up to the Coast Guard to make sure fishermen on those vessels are informed.
It is being monitored. Our dispatch center is aware of it. Our county's EOC has partially been activated, and they're keeping an eye on things. And the communication channels have been open.
Now, officials from inside City Hall to fire, police, even lifeguards are working all night monitoring the situation and making sure the beaches are clear. They encourage everyone to have a plan.
Important to have a plan. Blair Best reporting for us. Thank you so much.
And as we head to break, another live look out at the surf in Lincoln City. We've got extended coverage of the tsunami advisory on the West Coast. That is coming up after the break. We'll be right back.
But for now, there's a lot of confidence here that they won't have to have another update about danger to the community, but there is energy in the water and it's very tricky out there. So what they're going to do is send out updates on social media, probably about now and then another hour. When there is an all clear, the Adjutant General will come out and announce it. And that will be on X, on their social media. And of course, we'll pick that up and turn it around, probably live for you here on Hawaii News Now. So for now, left the building. There seems to be a lot of confidence that we have gotten through this crisis safely. And now I'll send it back to you folks on the set.
Carol, thank you very much. That is a significant development there. But of course, we are still on standby for the all clear. And as far as we've been told, that could even come tomorrow.
Come tomorrow. We've heard a range of estimates, right? You've heard an all clear being whispered potentially within the next couple hours or so. Other sides, if you listen to forecasters and scientists who, of course, they're looking at the numbers, they're looking at the models all night throughout this. And so you're not going to see maybe an all clear on their end for another few hours after that. Regardless, what we are witnessing so far is something that has shown, some areas of rising tide levels, strong current. This right now, as we give you our live shot from our Hilo Bay cam, is probably the most visual representation of what we can see so far. In the current conditions with the darkness here, is that the parking lot at Coconut Island has been flooded, giving us a sign, in addition to some of the video that we've been seeing with the receding water of the effects of this.
Yeah, and actually in about 5 minutes ago or so, we were just hearing from a reporter who was out on the North Shore near Haleiwa saying he witnessed water rushing back under the Rainbow Bridge. I know that we were taking some visuals from there earlier, but I want to open it up now to our First Alert weather team, Drew Davis and Ben Gutierrez, about your thoughts so far on where we're at tonight.
Yeah, it looks like at the moment what we've been seeing is a good sign. Basically, I know that some have said we may not get the all clear until tomorrow morning, but part of the scenario is this could be, there's a police car going into the parking lot, trying to make sure that nobody's there. Hasn't seen anybody, so okay, that's a good sign. At least the parking lot is navigable and nobody's there. Yep. That's also pretty good. But again, there could be another wave. There could be another surge that could be coming in. That's kind of what we're monitoring right now because we don't know. We have some idea, but we don't know just how many waves have been generated by this earthquake. It could be a while. However, confidence seems to be increasing, as Daryl mentioned, that this event, excuse me, could be downgraded a little bit because we've seen the spikes get a little bit bigger, but they haven't grown like huge.
Yes.
So if they're getting a little bit smaller and smaller as the night goes along, one part of the scenario is we might not get an all clear, but the warning might be downgraded a little bit to an advisory, where you still have to watch out for tsunami waves. They won't be destructive, but they can still cause strong currents. They can still cause some coastal inundation, just not anything destructive. So that's another possibility that could happen where the warning will be downgraded to an advisory.
Yeah, and we're going to be definitely watching out for that. One of the questions that we've been getting from viewers, at least what I've seen on our social media platforms, is that, of course, we've been talking about a lot of technical terms when it comes to the waves, the amplitude, the crest, the trough. If you bring us back on camera, I do want to show just what we're talking about when we talk about these terms, because it kind of gives you a better idea of how we're actually analyzing the data coming in from NOAA and coming in from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Here's what we showed you of Sand Island at Midway Atoll just a little while ago. Ben, you could point out again where we're seeing the shocks or the bumps coming in from the tsunami wave, and that's kind of playing into how this wave is changing very drastically. This is a diagram that I do want to walk you through because this is kind of an explanation of what's going on out there. We've got a crest, a trough, the wavelength, so how far the waves are, which is what we've been seeing about 20-ish minutes, I believe, between waves. So that's what we've been watching, at least coming from the data from Midway Atoll. And then the amplitude is how far it is away from its neutral position, so not up, not down. Again, this is a diagram you may be familiar with if you took high school physics.
Or we're paying attention.
But this is definitely, gives a little bit more insight to how these diagrams work with the data we've been getting from Midway Atoll. We've shown Na Wili Wili, and then we've also taken a look at over at Hanalei Bay, where we were seeing the water receding, feeding that wave, allowing it to grow its amplitude, so it gives a little bit more insight there.
Yeah, so when we're talking about a 4-foot amplitude over at Haleiwa, we're talking about the regular wave level. We're talking about this here, and then the amplitude, 4 feet. And so basically, I'm like 5'6", and so that would be about here. And so what we saw earlier from the live pictures that we had from Haleiwa a little bit earlier this evening definitely showed that, because you could see where the water level was. That was probably the high point, and then we could see where the sand had basically been exposed as the water was receding. So we're definitely seeing, so it's a tsunami. It's not huge, but we have tsunamis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, Steph, back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you were just talking about the 4-foot amplitude at Haleiwa, and that's where we're going to go live next.
Yeah, let's take it over to our Kyle Chinen, who is standing by live on the North Shore, monitoring the coastline. What can you tell us of what you've been seeing so far, Kyle?
Yeah, guys, we're here at Haleiwa Harbor, and just a couple minutes ago, the water, which has been consistently receding out of the harbor into the ocean and back towards the shoreline, just flooded a good chunk of the parking lot here at Haleiwa Harbor. I'm going to step out of the shot so that you can see just the wet ground. It was about ankle height, but it receded from the docks onto the parking lot area here. You know, we saw a bunch of cars. There are a lot of locals and residents here that are out just trying to check out kind of what's been going on. And this is, some of the residents have been telling me that was the farthest inland that it has reached here at the harbor parking lot. Some cars are just trying to get out of the area as soon as possible when it came in. And it lasted for about, I would say, 5 to 6 minutes before it started to recede back into the harbor area and then back into the ocean. And it's been pretty consistent like that here all night. Not a lot of destructive or big swells, but consistent receding out into the ocean and back here to the shore. Now, there was a lot of activity underneath the Rainbow Bridge, which is just a few feet away from us. And it looked like a river a couple minutes ago, right before we noticed that the harbor was starting to flood here a little bit. And as we come back out here, yeah, a lot of locals have told me that, you know, they've been here since that 7:10 predicted wave arrival for Kauai, and they just wanted to kind of see what was going on out here. But they also told me this is kind of the most drastic receding of water and coming back into shore that they've seen in quite some time. That's the latest here. I mean, still quite a lot of activity with cars driving around, people taking pictures on their phone, Instagram Live, you name it. But that's kind of the scene here right now. The water has slowly gone back in towards the ocean, and yeah, we just saw probably the biggest swell to hit land here on the North Shore. I'm going to send things back to you guys in the studio. That's the latest here in Haleiwa.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate that report, Kyle. And we want to show our viewers back at home the video that you filmed while out there as the water was flooding into the parking lot. This is it. Take a look. You can see, as Kyle described earlier, it was an ankle high, and then it didn't seem like it receded back for a while. It flooded the parking lot over at Haleiwa Harbor during the first arrival, estimated time of around 7:17 tonight for Oahu.
Yeah, based on the initial measurements that have come out so far, Haleiwa Harbor seems to be one of the areas with the most quote-unquote lively activity through this event so far. And so, yeah, you have the flooding video of the parking lot. We also saw a similar scene at Mauna Bay out in East Honolulu, Hilo Bay. We've been going back and forth between the Coconut Island parking lot cam, the water going in and out there, and of course Hanalei Bay on Kauai, which was the initial site and the initial area of concern through all this.
So all of these scenes that we are seeing here tonight and witnessing along with you at home, flooded parking lots due to this tsunami event, and the scientists at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center are hoping that this activity will continue. Smaller waves, of course, they mentioned, you know, they can't predict the pattern. It could be smaller waves and then a bigger one, but that is why it's going to take some time for them to just observe and wait and watch before they make that final. We do need to make sure that we are safe. Definitely safe from the officials at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. We need to wait for the official all clear before you head back.
Yeah, there seems to be high confidence in what we've been seeing so far, and, you know, a trend toward positivity in terms of, okay, you know, from what we've seen from the initial spikes that have unfolded, okay, it's looking like we're in a good spot. This is a normal pattern, nothing out of the ordinary, but of course the all clear has not been given, so it's not advisable to return to the low-lying areas just in case you have the risk of coastal flooding. That risk is always there. Ben Gutierrez and Drew Davis, you're always keeping track of the monitors here.
Yeah, definitely.
Folks, why do you think we saw more of a severe flooding event on the Haleiwa side versus on the East Oahu side?
Well, part of it is, yeah, there's a little bit of, you know, it's facing there, but at the same time, remember, just the way that Haleiwa Harbor is built, you've got a seawall there. You've got water that's going to be rushing through a very thin area. And so there's the possibility that more of that energy is going to start moving in through a very small area. Also, again, bathymetry, basically what's going on beneath the harbor. And so you've got, you know, some deep areas over there for so that boats can come in and out. But at the same time, those can cause currents that also could push some of that energy, the tsunami energy, farther up into the parking lot. And as Kyle was saying, it was only ankle deep, but unlike, again, the surf waves, they didn't come in and then recede. They stayed. Basically, the water level stayed at ankle deep for several minutes. So that means that you had that tsunami energy, which had been raised by the bottom of the ocean, being spread out as well. And so that is, you can look at that and maybe you can say it's not much. But remember, that came from thousands of miles away more than 6 hours ago.
Yeah.
That this is something that came from a long ways away, and it's here. This is what was caused by an earthquake off the Russian coast, and so it could have been worse. I mean, we're not completely out of the woods yet, but again, we are, seeing that tsunami energy, and just be glad that it hasn't been worse. And so for people who may be like armchair quarterbacks later on to say, well, it wasn't that big. Well, we don't really know until it actually gets here. And so it's better to err on the side of caution, because what if it had been a lot bigger, like we saw in 2011? I mean, that wasn't huge either, but it did cause a lot of damage. At least at this point, we can knock on wood. We can be thankful that it wasn't anything destructive, but just know that a tsunami has been moving through the islands.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, Ben. I want to make the note here that, again, the tsunami forecasting is much like meteorology. It's a very young science, only within the addition of weather models, ocean models, within the last 30 years, really, with the addition of high-tech computers that can really simulate the ocean to a degree that's actually usable for forecasting purposes. It's a very young science. It's very, it's not as clear-cut as something that, like, there's going to be, you can't pinpoint exactly the amount of damage. That's why throughout all of this afternoon we've been saying it's very hard to predict the actual size of the waves, much like the weather models that simulate the atmosphere that we use every day here on the First Alert Weather Center. These models at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, they're simulating the ocean, and they don't have as much observation data, and that plays into the models having less accuracy, more biases that they have to figure out whenever they're forecasting for this information. So it is good that we're seeing more confidence that this is not expecting to be as big of an event as potentially, because we did see over in Japan where we were seeing those tsunami waves crashing in near the shoreline. And again, I'm sure we will see other videos of damage throughout the next few days coming out of Russia and Japan, and potentially even the Aleutian Islands. So again, this is a new science. It's the idea of simulating the entire ocean when we don't even know the exact idea of the tectonic plates, like how much mass moved there. And we were saying earlier today that that movement is an incredible amount of energy just released into the ocean. It's very hard to simulate that with very little observation data at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, at this point, according to reports that we're getting from around the world and from the Associated Press, there have been tsunami waves in Japan. They are reporting, obviously, tsunami waves in Hawaii and elsewhere across the Pacific. The good news right now is around the Pacific, no substantial damage has been reported. There were some ports on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia that were close to the epicenter of this 8.8 magnitude earthquake, flooded, and then we saw some video earlier of big white waves that were coming in over parts of Hokkaido and portions of northern Japan. So at least, the thing that I want to emphasize is that it was a tsunami. The good news is that it was not destructive. It has, been, it's there, and we still have to be careful about strong currents, unusual currents. Parking lots getting flooded like Coconut Island and Haleiwa, and people should note that this is not behaving like a surf wave. We've seen the waves during the eddy, and people, the wave comes in and immediately goes out, and maybe sweep some people out. This one could have been, if you look back at the Indonesian earthquake and what happened there, just water energy just continuing to come in nonstop, like it just keeps flowing in because you're looking at the whole ocean coming in. You're not just looking at a wave. So we can be very thankful at this point, but again, we're not in the clear yet. We still have to wait and see just how many waves are generated by this particular event. So yeah, a couple of small waves, but we just want to make 100% sure before we let everybody return to evacuation areas. But right now, sit tight, just do what you need to do where you are and wait for the all clear signal when it is issued by the authorities.
Yeah, and a big mahalo to everybody's kokua out there for heeding the warnings and cooperating and making sure that our community is safe. We are now more than 2 hours into this event since the first arrival of the tsunami waves at Hanalei Bay at 7:10, followed by waves to arrive on Oahu at 7:20. And we witness changes, activity, energy in the ocean that continues as we speak. As we take a live look at our Waikiki camera, you can see the wet sand line there coming up quite a ways,
right.
Onto the shoreline there.
You can see the evolving water line as the night has unfolded, right? But yes, no major coastal flooding from what we've been seeing. And Ben, let's reiterate this point here, right? This is a tsunami event, but it's not a destructive tsunami from what we have been seeing thus far.
Yeah, and that's the good news right now. It is a tsunami. We were right to evacuate, quite frankly, because we didn't know there was the potential for destructive waves. We've seen inundation, we've seen parking lots flooded, which may be more of an inconvenience, but maybe, in the post-mortem, as we call it, maybe tomorrow morning with the light of day, and once this event has passed, we might see some damage to some boats. We might see a little bit of those things, maybe some coastal infrastructure damage, those sorts of things. We don't know yet because we really can't go into those areas. But once the all clear is given and people can assess if any damage has occurred, we can take a better look. But again, like in 2011, this is an event that could take several hours because we had waves still coming in for like 4 or 5 hours after the initial waves came in. And so even though the first wave was expected at 7 p.m. and it kind of, right in that time frame around 7:15, 7:30 did come in, we are now 2 hours in and we're not done yet because we're still seeing some waves coming in. We're going to be checking in again at the Midway buoy just to see if it's still recording any spikes that we've been watching all evening long. And if there's still spikes, we're not out of the clear yet.
Yeah, still seeing waves if there are still spikes. We'll make sure to give you another update from the Midway Atoll buoy. I do want to just bring up again the Hanalei, the time lapse that we showed earlier.
Oh yeah.
We were watching that live, and we could all see the reef getting exposed, and seeing that played back quickly. It's incredible to see how much water actually receded. Luckily, it didn't come back as a wall of water. Which here's the video that you can see on your live stream again. So you can very clearly see we were watching. Luckily, with the sun setting, you were able to see the way the currents were moving, and then there you go. The reef is exposed. The sand is exposed. Luckily, we didn't see anybody actually on the camera walking out. And Mark, you had something you wanted to
add? That was over the course of about a half hour or so too.
Yeah.
This just speaks to how fast this has moved.
Yeah.
The sirens are sounding again, and this alert says we are 2 hours out from the first wave arrival. Those waves were estimated at 7:10.
That may be an older update that is now playing on a device right now.
Oh.
Okay, it's funny how these mobile devices operate. So, not to stoke any fear here.
It's sounding again.
There is no new siren.
Steph, you have your own personal.
Yeah, I think you have your Apple Watches finally updating with the alerts from today.
It's catching up.
Yeah. Fortunately, we shouldn't be getting any alerts right now. That might have been just a leftover, but
no new alerts.
Yeah.
I am told, as we were looking at the parking lot of Coconut Island at the SCP Hotel, SCP Hilo Hotel, which is just a stone's throw away from this parking lot here. I am told we have great video of just flooding right in front of. This is the drop-off area of the property right now as you're looking at kind of the surge.
You're looking at the damages that a tsunami wave can cause, and you can see the water, just there, and it's not looking so powerful there, but it is pooling and it's not moving back, which means that more water is continuing to add to that. So that is why a tsunami wave can cause damage. We're seeing this coastal surges.
Is that the one that was the Hilo seaside?
Yeah, that's the one that's right in front of the ice pond in Hilo.
Yeah, it's right in front of the ice pond. So the ice pond is over there. That's the restaurant that's in the frame right now.
Yep.
And if you've ever been inside that restaurant, they do have a line painted on the wall which shows the height of the swell of the 1960 tsunami. So a little bit of history there, but obviously now that we're getting these pictures from HHH News, we can see ice ponds. That's the area that's usually, there's a road in front of there. That, again, that's the drop-off area. That's where people can drive in and go into the lobby. So that's a view from the lobby. So Hilo, well, there you go. The former Hilo Seaside Hotel. We're talking about the
1960 earthquake, the one generated by the earthquake in Chile.
Chile, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that one apparently generated a 35-foot wave.
Yeah, so they do have marks on the wall in that restaurant there. Fortunately, I don't think they really have to put a mark on the wall, although maybe it did get into the restaurant. But obviously, just that surge that has been coming in just off the ice ponds with a restaurant off in the distance there, and then just making it almost up the stairs into the lobby. So that is definitely a sign that, yes, there was a tsunami surge that came in. And inundated at least the parking lot and also the roads up near Banyan Drive. So probably that area got quite a bit of water activity, got quite a bit of flooding in that area.
And like Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins said earlier this evening, she was talking about Hilo really is the hot spot for tsunami flooding. It's the way that the bay is shaped. You get the wraparound, especially when you have the like in 2011, the wrap around the island from the tsunami generated from Japan out to its west, while Hilo's on the east side of the island. You're still seeing, just because of the shape of the bay and the seafloor topography, it just lifts this water up. And just a fun anecdote, this is the hotel that I stayed at in last August when we were covering Hurricane Hone over here. And the water, the flooding, was nowhere near the stairs of the SCP Hotel. Of course, this is right by the bay, so you're just seeing a little bit of a lift. But even with all the heavy rain and the flooding in the bay, and the flooding and the soccer fields right in Hilo Bay,
right, I remember that.
I didn't see any water levels like this.
And so once again, this is video from our Kyle Chinen out on Oahu's north shore of the flooding that just completely took over the parking lot at Haleiwa Harbor, just as those first waves were coming in at 7:17 tonight. He described that as being ankle high, and some boaters eventually came down to see if their property was okay, but you can see for the most part it seems a little empty out there.
So thus far, the images that have surfaced, you're able to really see how things have progressed over the night.
Our First Alert Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins has joined us now with an update on some new data, Jen.
And as the night progresses and as daybreak comes our way for tomorrow, I'm sure we'll see more activity, especially along some of those harbors. But let's take a closer look at the tsunami wave readings. So far, we've been in good shape, but Haleiwa, Kahului, and also Hilo seen the most action. This is how it breaks down for you. Readings at 4 feet was the latest information with those initial cycles. And we saw that on Maui as well. Makapu'u, not as big at 2.3 feet. And then likely, we didn't get a reading quite yet in Hilo, but falling anywhere from 4 to 5 feet, according to some of the history that we've seen of how much significant flooding has been occurring. We just saw all of that video that came through, significant flooding there with lots of energy. In Haleiwa, parking lots have been flooded, some of the adjacent parks as well. Minor flooding and run-up that we've been seeing on Maui. Makapu'u, no major damage, luckily. And past most affected areas have been in Hilo, as we've been talking about the hot spot for tsunamis due to the bay shape And it was hit hardest in 1946, 1960, and 2011. And we are going to be seeing some minor flooding into the night as this continues. We're hoping that it's peaked at these levels, but we could have a spike here and there. And that's why we're waiting for the next couple of hours to see how the ocean behaves and how it settles down. But it looks like these initial cycles, we have been seeing action up to about 4 feet or so. Kona also suffered damage in 1975 and 2011, and then other coasts that we're seeing over the western end of the state, seeing run up depending on the wave direction, but no major damage. The most damage we've been seeing has been in Haleiwa, with some of that parking lot flooding into the night. So this is where we stand. So we are hopefully going to be on the back edge of all of this energy. We've been seeing initial cycles that came in with those initial waves, about 1, 2, 3 waves or so, maybe 4 or 5. We're hoping that we're going to be on the backside in the next couple of hours. But even after things settle down, it is highly unpredictable of how strong the currents can be. And we are going to be declining when it comes to high tide as well. But we're still seeing plenty of surf and swell action. We have higher surf on south-facing shores and east-facing shores. And we have been seeing that within the last 24 hours. And it will continue with that trend within the next 24 to 36 hours. But here's our closer look at tsunami energy. We're talking about the big quake just off the coast of Russia. The Earth's plates rubbed together, causing an underwater earthquake. And this one had a lot of depth to it, and that's what causes all of that energy to travel so far, as fast as 500 to 550 miles per hour across the ocean. So we did have that 6-hour window. And now you can see the earthquake causes a vertical push of sea water. And then as it rises, that's when you get those tsunami waves of energy. And as the waves spread into shallow waters, it grows in height. And just a friendly reminder, the power of water. 1 foot can pick up cars, 2 feet can move SUVs and heavy trucks. And areas of concern are also by rivers, and we've been talking about that as well. So you got to be careful out there. So we're not out of the woods yet, but so far so good when it looks like some of that minor flooding that has occurred. But you can see historically, we have been seeing a number of tsunamis here in Hawaii, up to about 160. And you can see the biggest one that occurred with the most damage and devastation occurred in 1960 with magnitude 9.5. It arrived 15 hours and brought up to 35-foot waves. Incredible to see the strength and how far this wave action could travel. So keep it tuned here. Your First Alert team will be watching the buoy readings very carefully into the night.
All right, thank you so much from our Chief Meteorologist, Jennifer Robbins, for that very important information. And here, more evidence of people heeding the warnings. This is an image from Uncle John Lum, no relation, same last name.
But mahalo nui to Uncle John here.
Uncle John Lum for this image here of all of the boaters heading out to sea. This is, I believe, off Ala Moana.
Yeah, what a shot to define how the night has unfolded, right? And to really underscore the response. You know, when the warning came in just before 3 o'clock this afternoon, there was a lot of attention paid to the harbors and port areas across the state as boaters who have vessels and you know, they're moored in different areas were told to take their vessel out into the open ocean. You don't want to keep it tied down in the harbor or in the port areas because that could cause a lot of damage. It can be a really huge mess. So head out into the open ocean. That is the best area to wait out a tsunami event.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we saw them leave in force from Honolulu Harbor earlier today as well. A lot of fishing boats and the Coast Guard leading the way. For many of them, this is maybe the second time that they've been through this. I mean, as recently as 2011, we saw a lot of them also leaving the harbors, and we saw what happened to a lot of the boats that unfortunately could not get out in time. And even though some people did tie them up and prepare them, just the power of those tsunami waves back in 2011 heavily damaged a lot of boats. So you can see this is great to see all of these boaters leaving in force, heeding the warnings. Ben and Drew?
We wanted to talk a little bit more about, we've been talking a little bit about the bathymetry and basically how the tsunami waves work, because a little bit way earlier in the evening when the warning was first issued, some people had the question about, well, for example, the Haleiwa side get some waves and am I safer on the east Honolulu side? Obviously not, because that wave will wrap around the islands. Once again, when we talk about the amplitude and also about the wave heights, when we talk about 4 feet at Haleiwa, that means 4 feet above the normal height of the ocean. As we look at Haleiwa, we're going to be zooming in a little bit more. Yeah, actually, yeah, you get a good sense of like Haleiwa Harbor right by 83 here. You can see the two seawalls and then how it kind of comes in. And so the parking lot where Kyle is, right around, but yeah, oh no, it actually was this one, because this is the Rainbow Bridge right there. And so you can definitely see, even though in our graphic the waves are coming in the wrong way, basically you've got a little area there where you're going to have water that's going to be smushed up against the land. And so that is one big reason why that particular wave came in and flooded the area.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to mention that this is the same graphic that we use every day when we take a look at our radar and satellite. You may have never noticed just the look of it, but this is actually displaying the seafloor terrain. So the darker blues here are indicating much deeper water. The lighter blues you can see, especially as you're running up closer to the oceans or to the island, you're seeing those the shelf or the seafloor getting higher and higher. And when we zoom back in closer to Haleiwa, you can see this is an area that is relatively shallow. That's why one of the reasons we were allowed to see the water run up very easily into Haleiwa Harbor. Of course, we've shown you video about that. If you bring us back on camera, I do want to explain one more time this, because this plays into how this the crest, the amplitude, the wavelength, how it all played in. I want to point out here that we've got the neutral position on our wave. We've got the wavelength between two crests that was about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer between our waves. The amplitude, how high it is from the neutral position, which just is right between high and low tide. So imagine this is high tide and low tide. Imagine that this is the seafloor and it's getting pushed up. You're getting pushed up further and further when you're in the peak of your wave, the peak of the tsunami wave. The amplitude can only grow. The sea column can only grow as it's getting closer to the shore. And unfortunately, that's what was happening across the entire Pacific Ocean, especially when you get close to those areas, those coastal areas, areas that have less depth, like Haleiwa Harbor, where it's relatively shallow compared to other parts of the island. So you allow that amplitude to grow, and unfortunately we were able to see the Haleiwa parking lot get flooded, and also the Coconut Island parking lot flooded. So we've seen two instances of water coming up into low-lying areas so far, and allowing the water to just rush in and really have a hard time receding for a little bit.
Yeah, if we can go back to the map of the state, if you could just go ahead and drive the computer here. We're just going from graphic to graphic. Let's do the islands, and then let's kind of look at the island of Hawaii, and we'll turn off the radar here, even though we do have a few windward and Mauka showers. But you can see that Hilo is more on the sheltered side, and you would think, okay, the tsunami is coming from Russia, it's coming from the northwest, but Hilo still got quite a bit of that energy from the tsunami. Also, as we head into this part, I think Laupahoehoe, that area was destroyed by tsunami back in 1946 and overrun. And then when you look at Hilo, we'll zoom in a little bit closer to Hilo there. You've got a breakwater there, and then yeah, we also have some shallower water that is in that area. And so when you're looking at the SCP Hotel, no surprise that it's getting quite a bit of water, because that area is going to have a lot of swell energy, a lot of ocean water that's funneled over into it. Mark, Steph, back over to you.
Thank you so much, guys. I know that they were talking about the flooding at Coconut Island in Hilo, and we did see a lot of flooded parking lots there, including into the hotel that was nearby. In fact, we have Hawaii County Mayor Kimo Alameda standing by live, joining us right now tonight. And sir, if you could tell us, we are now more than 2 hours into this event. What can you tell us so far in terms of any damage or observations that you've noticed since then?
Thank you. Yes, we are here at EOC, and we did get the Haleiwa update, and we do have some flooding. We've been getting video and reports in from our lower line areas. We recognize that the 9 feet that Haleiwa mentioned, for Hilo is somewhat significant. So we are just standing by to see. Hopefully that what we're hearing is we need to see about 3 or 4 insignificant waves to be all in the clear, and that's not going to happen for another hour. So we are just on standby right now.
Any road closures in the area? Obviously, people should not be on the roads, but what are you receiving in terms of reports of any road impacts and kind of just infrastructure updates there?
Absolutely. I mean, all roads that needed to be closed were closed after the evacuation. And
Yes, now we're getting somewhere.
Low-line areas, and we are giving them the message not to do that. We are not in the clear. This is still an emergency, and we are taking it seriously until we get the all clear. We expect no residents to go back in low-line areas.
Mayor, can you please, in terms of the activity at the emergency shelters tonight?
Yeah, so we have 11 emergency shelters currently operating, and we have about 1,500 evacuees that we are catering to right now, and so they are also on standby. And again, we are not unfamiliar with these tsunamis, right? We have 4 of them that I'm aware of. 1952, 1960 was the biggest tsunami. So, Hilo town, we're resilient. We know that we don't take these threats lightly, and this is a big deal for us. So again, all hands on deck. We got everybody here at the EOC. We're not leaving until we get the all clear sign.
Are there any areas, we're paying a lot of attention to Hilo, and rightfully so, but are there any other areas around the county that you're keeping a close eye on?
Absolutely. I mean, all coastal areas, are areas that we have to pay attention to. I mean, I remember tsunamis back in the Kanoe administration when Hilo didn't get any impacts, but Ali'i Drive, they got it really bad. And I mean, in Honau there was a house that got uplifted and was floating in the bay. So these are memories that we have, and that's why we don't take this lightly. This is a serious situation, and until we get the all clear sign, we're going to stay here.
All right, that's Hawaii County Mayor Kimo Alameda. Thank you so much for joining us and speaking with us tonight. Again, providing that very important message that this could very well be a long night for a lot of us as we wait this out, as we wait for the official word from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. We did hear from Dr. Chip McCreary, who gave us those updates about an hour ago, and he said he would be back with another update. We're expecting that maybe at around the 10 o'clock or so. So, of course, they're still monitoring all the data coming in from those 15 sites across the state.
So we're monitoring this statewide. We just spoke with Hawaii County Mayor Kimo Alameda. Also, too, I want to bring in Ben Gutierrez as well, because we've also been keeping a close eye on this Coconut Island cam and looking how the parking lot has flooded. Is it me, or kind of has the water level changed where we see that police vehicle right there? Because earlier, about an hour and a half ago, that area seemed to be completely covered in water, and now you have a vehicle there.
And it looks like you can almost see more of the bridge underneath of it as well.
Yeah, you can see the bridge, and also the water level has probably gone down about 3 feet, back to close to normal. And so it was flooded a little earlier. It looks like the water levels are kind of back to normal at the moment. In fact, if it's possible, I don't know if we can take Max 2, the weather computer. I'm not sure how quickly we can do that, but here we go. So this is Coconut Island right here. That's the bridge. And then a little bit earlier, we're looking at the SCP Hilo Hotel. That is this right here. So the hotel is right here. We've got the ice pond. Let me just clear this out. And so you've got all this water that's kind of trying to get into this area. And as it does, the problem is you've got just this little area that the water is trying to get into. And so a lot of that is going to flood into this area as well. And so that was the reason why we're seeing in some of these spots where the water energy is getting into a more narrower and narrower section. And so no surprise that that area has gotten quite a bit of the activity. Hilo Airport right here, very close to Hilo Bay, so that's the reason why it's still closed. Kuhio Street, Keaukaha, this airport was closed because this whole neighborhood here had to get evacuated, and so you basically don't want to have this area, you know, or basically be in this area during that time. And even though it looks like we, again, did not have a whole lot happening in this area, it's good to know that we did the right thing, because when you're seeing the flooding that's going on, both here at the SCP Hotel and the ice ponds, and also here with the parking lot for Coconut Island, and we can, you know, with our maps now, we can get this is about as close as we can get, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, we are definitely seeing the impacts in Hilo and in Hawaii County. But what about what's happening here on Oahu? We want to go live now to our Lynn Kawano at the Emergency Operations Center. Lynn.
Yeah, Stephanie, you know, the mayor is still here, as well as first responders in the Emergency Operations Center at the Fosse building, but they don't have any more media briefings planned. They are waiting for the state to give the all clear, which is anticipated in the next hour or two. So they all stay here. They are monitoring things. We did see some high water events out in Haleiwa and on the North Shore, but other than that, things seem to be quieting down a bit here in Honolulu, so they are waiting to see if we get the all clear. They are not out, they're saying we're not out of the woods yet, but they want to make sure that they get the all clear from the state before issuing any more press releases or having any more press conferences here at the EOC. The mayor showed up about 3:15 this afternoon, just as the emergency sirens first started going off, and then we had subsequent sirens throughout the afternoon at 4:10, 5:10, and 6:10. We had multiple briefings as the events were going on, but again, things are wrapping up out here. The mayor does have an early flight tomorrow. He's heading to Hiroshima to mark the 80th anniversary of the dropping of the bomb. He and his team are heading out to that, but they are still here waiting for the state to give the all clear. Back to you guys in the studio.
And thank you so much, Lynn. That seems to be the comment. Waiting for the all clear because we are not out of the woods just yet.
Right. Forecasters are keeping a very close eye. The expectation is that we'll be getting an update from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center at the top of the hour from Chip McCreary within.
That's right. As Mark was just saying, as we wait for the all clear, that will ultimately come from officials from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, with a particular individual, the director of Dr. Chip McCreary. We're hearing that we will be getting an update right at 10 o'clock, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we get it. But as we are looking at this live shot now, I want to bring in our First Alert weather team, Drew, Ben, and Jen. Any observations so far?
Right now, things have definitely calmed down. Look at the water surface right now. The police car helpfully illuminating the bridge, and you can see it's just calm, very calm beneath the bridge as far as the water. We might still see the possibility of some wave energy coming in, more tsunamis that may come in, but it looks like things, at least for now, have quieted down. Again, remember that these waves have been coming in anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes apart, and so this might just be a little lull between tsunami waves at the moment. But you can see right now that even though it is calm, the parking lot itself was flooded a little bit earlier. A couple of police cars now in the parking lot meeting there. But a little bit earlier this evening, about an hour ago, we could see that it was definitely flooded. And so with the amount of water that was in the parking lot, it was likely the same thing that was happening in Haleiwa, where the water level came up, stayed up for a while, and then finally receded. I'm sure the police are right now just checking the area just to make sure that nobody is there, that everybody's remaining safe. And if you're at the hotels that are close to that area, you're likely watching us from the 4th floor or higher, and you would be safe there and be able to see what is going on. And if you're looking at it, you should be glad that this is all you see, because otherwise, if we had a destructive tsunami, it would be a very different story and would be Definitely a lot more worried. We're still a little worried at this point. I mean, it's not destructive, but we still have energy that's coming in, and we've been kind of tracking.
And speaking of energy coming in, we want to show you this video that's just into the newsroom now from Kahului, Maui, where officials reported a 15-foot drop in the water at Kahului Harbor tonight during the tsunami warning. Jen.
As we take a closer look at the latest readings, too, we did see a big spike there in Kahului. It initially came in with those initial cycles at about 4 feet, but then the latest reading now is at 5.7 feet, so bringing coastal flooding. We haven't been seeing a whole lot of eyes there in video yet, but this is likely seeing major coastal flooding in some of the areas there. Haleiwa, as we were seeing, the parking lots have been flooded out, and in Hilo, some significant flooding, but things seem to be quieting down there, and it did reach about 4.9 feet. So we are hoping that it reached its peak already, with its peak being at 5.7, crossing our fingers that it will be on a downward trend. And we're measuring these in amplitude, and you could actually see the amplitude is measured relative to the normal sea level. So we're seeing about 4 to about nearly 6 feet when it comes to that amplitude. So still under the tsunami warning. We will have to wait and see what the next couple of cycles do, and hopefully in the next several hours we won't see any more of those peaks that jump up like in Kahului from 4 feet to 5.7, and that will be more on a downward trend.
Now to Kahului and the incident that happened there. Once again, officials saying an approximately 15-foot water drop at Kahului Harbor tonight. And there were also some evacuations that took place. According to Maui County, 2 helicopters were sent out to evacuate rural areas, including 2 fishermen in Kahikinui and Kaupo. 10 to 15 people, they say, at Nu'u Landing, and also 1 person in Nahiku, 3 people in Haleiwa, 1 in Wailau, and they say people on Lanai near shipwrecks and 4 people at Nakalele were also warned during this tsunami warning alert.
Yeah, and that speaks to the comprehensive response that each of the individual counties and their leaders need to undertake when you have an event like this, right? Making sure that residents are taken care of and making sure that areas are cleared, especially spots of high concern, the low-lying coastal areas. Just what an image we're seeing as more and more pictures and video are coming out, showing and documenting kind of how the night has unfolded statewide. So you have Maui County sending this out of the 15-foot water drop. And we also want to bring back in the footage that we saw earlier tonight at Hanalei Bay, which was the first site of the expected activity from the tsunami. The time lapse over about course of about half hour, 45 minutes or so, when they were in the active time frame starting from 7:10 p.m. Since then, we've seen headlines in Hawaii, Oahu, Big Island, Maui County as well. So this really is a statewide event, what we're seeing with this.
Yeah, and as we continue to look at this time-lapse video of Hanalei Bay and the water receding, you can clearly see parts of the reef being exposed right there in the middle of your screen, and then it'll slow and then it'll freeze frame it there. And of course, we witness flooding, you know, throughout Hilo. Here at this Hilo hotel, you can see the flooding coming up and almost entering the lobby there during the initial waves. So this next reading now and the next set of data that we're expecting from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center could paint a clearer picture perhaps of what we might be in for, whether or not they did witness any change in the size of the waves as well. And that's what we'll be looking forward to, maybe less than 5 minutes away from getting that update from Dr. Chip McCreary at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center.
Yeah, a number of different scenes that have been unfolding across Oahu right now in the areas of concern. We're told that Haima Governor Josh Green is no longer at the building, but they are keeping a very close eye. Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi remains at the city's Emergency Operations Center along with city emergency officials. And the scientists and the forecasters at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, we are expecting an update from them within the next several minutes or so. When that happens, we'll be heading out there live. I'm told we have new video of the water drop that we were just discussing at Kahului, which was earlier this evening.
That's right. We saw significant changes, parts of Oahu with Maunalua Bay parking lot flooding and Haleiwa just being inundated by the flood waters there taking over the parking lot at Haleiwa Harbor. This here, though, seems subtle, but officials noting that an approximate 15-foot water drop occurred during the first arrival of the tsunami waves. We're talking about, the teams being ready and state officials making it clear that no matter what happens, they are standing by ready to respond. High water vehicles ready to go, aircraft ready to go, search and rescue. Of course, no reports of any of that being needed or activated, but those teams stand ready. FEMA workers saying they also stand ready in the event of any damage from the waves. And so far, what we can tell you now is that we have not gotten any reports of any major damage out there. Just hearing from, Hawaii County Mayor Kimo Alameda and Governor Josh Green recently saying, this is what we're just seeing right here, is just flooding as a result of these initial tsunami waves. And we are very hopeful that it will continue to just be this. Not any major damage, no reports of that so far.
One thing that I'm curious about, I want to bring back in Ben and Drew here, is what are we seeing in terms of intervals between these wave events and the timing of which, and how often are we seeing? Because we saw the spikes, we're really tracking closely the midway readings with the buoy. When it comes to our readings here, what can we say about the timing between the intervals?
Well, we've had like some highs and lows. So as far as the intervals between the highest spikes that we've seen, at least on the buoy over at Midway, I would say about 45 minutes, but then there were like a lot of smaller spikes in between there. And so if you kind of divvy that up, just my rough guess right now would be approximately 20 minutes between these waves. Some are bigger than others, and so you'll get a big wave maybe every 40 minutes or thereabouts. And we've seen a couple of those spikes. We saw 5. The first one was kind of big, and then the next 3 spikes are smaller. Then another big spike, and then we haven't really checked the spikes lately, but I'm sure that's one thing that, again, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is looking at. And just judging from what we've seen so far, we're seeing the flooding. We've seen it in Hilo. We've seen it at Coconut Island. We've seen it at Haleiwa Harbor. There is flooding. There is inundation. Nothing damaging. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. But it is still a tsunami. And so a lot of people were taking it very seriously. This shot tells a big part of the story. The Coast Guard and we here at Hawaii News Now and the First Alert Weather Team were saying, if you've got a vessel, take it out to open ocean, at least 300 feet depth, so 100 fathoms. So this is off Magic Island. These are a lot of the boats that left Alawai Small Boat Harbor and are waiting out, we're waiting out the possible tsunami or a destructive tsunami out in the open ocean where it's a lot safer. During 2011, we could see a lot of the damage that was caused when the currents took boats, ripped them away from their moorings, bashed them against each other, ripped piers away, those sorts of things. A lot of vessel owners, vessels are valuable, they cost a lot of money, and you definitely want to protect that. Best way to protect that investment, take it out into the open ocean. It's a lot safer out there.
Yeah, and it's definitely just telling from that picture where all of the boats are out in the water, just seeing the amount of just movement that we had to get done to get people to Melka areas to be safe, away from the tsunami evacuation zones. Again, these are areas just near the coast. Waikiki, arguably right on the beach. A lot of tourists are here. They don't know exactly what is maybe happening. That's another angle that I think we haven't really explored this evening is they may have not gotten the alerts. We were seeing the people in the water right after the tsunami warning was happening. We were watching people in the water of Waikiki. They may just not have been aware of the danger expressed by this tsunami. So I believe we're going to go back to Chip McCreary at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center.
Let's listen in.
Let's listen in.
I'm happy to report that looking at all of the gauges that we monitor here at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center across the state of Hawaii, it looks like we have already recorded the maximum amplitude on those gauges, and in most cases it was the third wave. A couple of them it was the second wave, and there was one gauge with a fairly small reading that it was something like the fifth wave. But based on that data, I feel confident at least that we're past the worst part of it. We're not going to see any impacts bigger than we've already seen, and so we are more or less in the stage right now of finding out when we can lower the alert level from a warning to an advisory, and that's just going to make sure, because the largest readings we had were, we need to have amplitudes of about everything less than 3 feet, and kind of considerably less. We don't want to be right at the borderline. So our biggest amplitudes were, Honolulu was 8 feet from crest to trough, or a 4-foot amplitude, and same with Haleiwa. They were both about 8 feet crest to trough maximum. Hilo was 9 feet, and it turns out Kahului was the biggest measurement we had, which was about 11 feet from crest to trough. So, like I said, we want this to go down to everything less than a 3-foot amplitude or 6 feet crest to trough, and most gauges are below that, but some of them are still having some things fairly close to that. So we will be monitoring it again over the next hour. Hopefully, then the decision can be made to drop our alert level down to advisory, and that will be the first step. Now, advisory is still, we know from our experience, for example, with the Japan tsunami, that because we've had these big impacts, that there's a lot of energy in the water out there. There's a lot of strong currents, and so going from an advisory to a cancellation, we may have to be even more cautious doing that, and it'll probably be sometime maybe early tomorrow morning before we can issue a cancellation. But right now we're trying to looking towards when we can lower the alert level to advisory. So I'll take any questions.
So what areas are you going to be looking at specifically to be able to make a declaration or advise for a downgrade to happen?
Well, for all of these gauges, it's not like a simple large peak and then it gets smaller every peak after that. It's large and some smaller waves, and then it pops back up again. In fact, on a lot of gauges we saw there was kind of the first 3 or 4 waves were pretty big, then it died down, and then there was another pulse. So we just want to make sure we don't have any surprises later on. So we will examine all of those gauges to try and make sure it's safe before we go to advisory level.
Given where we are right now and with those latest readings, what areas do you expect to have the most damage, or at least the most visible impact from this?
Well, based on our sea level gauges, it would be those 4 sites: Honolulu, Haleiwa, Kahului, and Hilo. But there's lots of parts of the coast we don't have gauges, and we probably might not know until tomorrow morning when it becomes light. Certain areas that got flooded that we just can't tell because we don't have a gauge there. So, but certainly the places in the past that have gotten flooded that I named, those will be the places certainly that we'll look. And I think there was some footage of some flooding in Hilo, but that's not from our sources.
Is the tsunami watch, is that pre-wave and then a tsunami advisory that's post-wave, so it goes watch, warning, and advisory?
Well, the watch really is a heads up to everybody. It's a heads up to the public. It's a heads up to the emergency management and responding officials that something has happened that could result in an advisory or warning and for a tsunami, and that we haven't evaluated the situation yet. We're still collecting data to try and make that evaluation. So when we don't have enough data yet to call a warning or an advisory, but we know there was a big earthquake, which was the case today, then we'll issue the watch so that everyone can start getting prepared. When the public hears a watch, they really should find out where they are or where they're going to be in the next few hours. And the watch will include an estimated arrival time for the state. So they can go, oh, you know, I was going to go to the beach this afternoon, but maybe I won't now because I don't know what's going to happen. That's kind of the reasoning behind a watch.
If you were to give a timeline, though, is that safe to say perhaps in the next few hours, maybe in the next 12 hours, when you're able to perhaps declare a downgrade and perhaps give it an advisory? Is it safe to give a timeline?
I would hope we could go to an advisory within the next couple of hours. So, yes.
For those that might have left their home and to seek higher ground or to shelter, what's your advice to them now at this hour?
I think when we do downgrade, that absolutely, yeah, until they get instructions from the counties.
Anything took you by surprise from this event?
Not really. I mean, our footing here is really, we don't know when earthquakes are going to happen. We just have to react when they do, and we apply the tools that we have to try and make the best forecast as possible. And in general, we will always err on the conservative side because
I can consider Clover as our third arm. We're able to track our time for our employees a lot more efficiently.
Before Clover, it was very unprofessional. It was very chaotic.
After Clover.